She grabbed his wrist mid-sentence. Ethan Carter was still laughing at his own joke when Claire Whitmore's hand closed around his arm like a vice, and she pulled hard, dragging a 200-pound former firefighter across her lawn, up her steps through her front door. The deadbolt slammed home behind them. She didn't say a word. She didn't let go. She just walked him down the hallway toward a bedroom door nobody in that neighborhood had ever seen open. He'd told her to marry him as a joke. She was about to show him why it wasn't funny. And what was behind that door wasn't what any of you are thinking. Stay to the end. You'll understand why she never let anyone in that room. And do me a favor, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels tonight. Hit subscribe if you want the rest. 11 minutes earlier, Ethan Carter had been on his knees in his own driveway trying to convince an 8-year-old that the world was not ending. It's fine, Lil. It's not fine. It's a bike chain. It's my only bike chain. Lily Carter sat on the curb with her arms locked across her chest, and Ethan crouched over the upended Schwinn like a man performing surgery on a patient he loved. Grease under his fingernails, sweat down the back of his neck, 40 minutes of daylight left, and a chain that had jumped the sprocket for the 3rd time that month. Hand me the flathead. Which one's the flathead? The one that looks like a flathead. Dad. He held out his palm without looking. She slapped a screwdriver into it the way she'd seen nurses do it on TV, and he had to bite down on a smile because she took everything so seriously, this kid. Everything. She got that from her mother. Okay, he said. Watch. Chain goes here. Sprocket goes there. You pull back, you seat it, you... The chain slipped. It bit into the meat of his thumb. He didn't curse. He hadn't cursed in front of her in 8 years, and he wasn't about to start on a Tuesday. You do it again. He finished evenly. You're bleeding. I'm leaking. There's a difference. That's not a real difference. It's a very real difference, and one day when you're grown, you'll understand it. Lily leaned in to inspect the damage with the grim expertise of a child who has spent her whole life around a man who breaks himself for a living. You should put a bandage on it. I should put a bandage on it, he agreed. I will. After. After what? After it stops being an emergency. It's a bike. Kid. He looked up at her, and something in his face made her go quiet. To me, everything you own is an emergency. That's the job. She didn't have an answer for that, so she picked at the hem of her shorts and watched him work, and that was when the black car turned onto Merrick Lane. Ethan noticed it the way he noticed everything peripherally, professionally. A habit. 14 years of running into buildings had drilled into him, and 8 years of not running into buildings hadn't drilled out. A black Mercedes, not a neighborhood car. Merrick Lane was a Honda street, a minivan street, a 15-year-old F-150 street. The Mercedes moved slow like it was reading house numbers, and then it stopped. Across from him, in front of 1412, Claire Whitmore's house. Dad. Yeah. Who's that? Nobody. You always say that. Because it's usually true. 2 people got out. A woman in her 60s, silver blonde in a coat that cost more than Ethan's truck. A man about the same age, jaw like a closed door. They didn't look at the house the way visitors look at a house. They looked at it the way a bank looks at a property. The woman rang the bell twice, then knocked, then rang it again. Ethan went back to the chain. Here's what Merrick Lane knew about Claire Whitmore. She'd bought 1412, 4 years ago, cash no realtor sign, out front longer than a weekend. She was an interior designer, a good one. The kind whose work showed up in magazines that Ethan's late wife used to leave open on the coffee table. She drove a silver Lexus and kept it spotless. She was polite to everyone and close with no one. She waved. She smiled. She brought a bottle of wine to the block party in June and left before the paper plates came out. And in 4 years, nobody, not the Hendersons, not old Marty Kowalski, not the Chens, not Ethan had ever been past her front hall. Not once. Millie Henderson, who ran the neighborhood the way a small country is run, had a theory. Millie always had a theory. She's hiding something in there, Millie had said last summer over the fence, with the confidence of a woman who has never once been right about anything. Nobody keeps a house that clean and lets nobody see it. Maybe she just likes her privacy, Ethan had said. Nobody likes privacy that much. I do. Ethan Carter, you are the loneliest man on this street, and you'd talk to a lamppost if it asked you how your day was. He'd laughed. He hadn't argued, because Millie was wrong about Claire and right about him, and there was no percentage in correcting a woman who was 50% accurate. But this much was true: in 4 years of waving across that street, Ethan had said maybe 200 words to Claire Whitmore. He knew her coffee order because he'd seen the cup. He knew she worked late because he saw the light. He knew she didn't have a man in her life because there was never a second car, never a second silhouette, never anything. And he knew, the way you know weather, that something had happened to her once. He knew because he had the same thing. They're still there, Lily reported. Mind your business. You're looking too. I'm supervising. That's the same as looking. That's different. That's responsible looking. She snorted. Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and glanced up, and the front door of 1412 was open now, and Claire Whitmore was standing in it, and even from 60 feet away, he could read the shape of her body the way he used to read smoke. She had her arms folded. Not casually, not comfortably. She had her arms folded the way people fold their arms when they're holding themselves together. The silver-blonde woman was talking, fast. The man with the closed-door jaw stood back and said nothing, which somehow made it worse. Ethan looked away. That was the rule. You don't watch a person's bad moment. You give them the dignity of pretending you didn't see. Get me the wrench, he said. Which? The one that looks like a wrench, Lily. She laughed. That was worth the whole afternoon, that laugh. He got the chain seated. He got the sprocket true. He spun the pedal, and the wheel turned clean and silent, and he felt the small, ridiculous satisfaction of a man who has fixed exactly one thing in a world full of broken ones. Okay, he said. Try it. Lily didn't move. Lil, try it. Dad! Her voice had changed. Dad, she's crying. He stood up. Across the street, the Mercedes was pulling away from the curb, and Claire Whitmore was standing in her own doorway with her hand over her mouth and her shoulders going in that specific way, that terrible silent way that people's shoulders go when they are trying very hard not to make a sound. Go inside, Ethan said. But, Lily, inside. Take the bike. Are you gonna? Inside. She went. She was a good kid, and she could hear the difference in his voice, and Ethan stood in his driveway with a rag in one hand and a bleeding thumb and 8 years of practiced distance, and he thought, don't. He thought, she's a private person. She waves, she smiles, she brings wine and leaves early. She has never once asked you for anything. He thought the last time you tried to help someone you buried her. And then Claire's knees went a little soft, just a little, just a stumble, just the smallest failure of a body that had been holding itself upright too long, and Ethan Carter was already crossing the street. He'd been crossing streets toward people in trouble his whole life. It wasn't a decision. It was a reflex. It was the only reflex he'd never been able to kill. Hey. She didn't look up. Hey. Claire. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand, fast angry, the way you wipe up something you spilled before anyone can see. When she turned around, she had a smile on. An actual, functional, professional smile. And it was, Ethan thought, the most frightening thing he'd seen in years, how fast she could put it on. Like a woman pulling a sheet over furniture. Ethan. Hi. Bright. Steady. Sorry, did you need something? No. Oh. The smile flickered. Then, you okay? I'm fine. Okay. I'm fine, she said again, and her voice cracked right down the middle of the word fine, and she heard it, and he heard it, and neither of them said anything for a second. Ethan looked at the street. It seemed like the polite thing to do. Nice car, he said. Claire made a sound that was not quite a laugh. It's my mother's. Figured. Why? Nobody parks like that unless they think the street belongs to them. She did laugh, then one broken syllable of it, and put her hand back over her mouth like the laugh had surprised her and betrayed her at the same time. Ethan, I appreciate this, I do, but you don't have to. I'm not doing anything. You're standing on my porch. I'm standing near your porch. There's a difference. That's not a real difference. Second time today somebody's told me that, he said. I'm starting to think I'm losing an argument I've been having my whole life. She looked at him for a long moment. There was mascara under her right eye, and she didn't know it. You've got... He gestured at his own face. Oh, God. She scrubbed at it. Better. Worse. Ethan, you want the truth? Or you want to be comfortable because I can do either, but I can't do both at the same time. Ask my daughter. And Claire Whitmore stood in her doorway in a $500 blouse with a wrecked face, and for 1 second, one single unguarded second, looked at him like he was the first real thing that had happened to her all day. Then she said, They want me to marry someone. He didn't say anything. That was the trick. Most people, somebody hands them a sentence like that, they rush in with words. Ethan had sat with too many people on too many curbs beside too many wrecks to make that mistake. You don't fill the silence. You hold it open like a door. Claire stepped out onto the porch and sat down on the top step, which surprised them both. His name is Grant Whitfield, she said. He's 41. He's a partner at my father's firm. He has a house in Aspen and a boat he doesn't know how to drive. And he has been described to me by my own mother out loud twice as suitable. That's a hell of a word. It's a catalog word. It's what you say about a couch. She laughed again, that same broken laugh. That's the third one this year, Ethan. The third. There was a Michael in February, and a Preston, an actual human being named Preston in April, and now Grant, and every single time my mother says the same thing. She says, Claire, sweetheart, it's been 4 years. 4 years since what? The question landed like a dropped plate. Claire's face closed. Not slowly. Instantly. The sheet went back over the furniture, and Ethan watched it happen and thought, there it is. It doesn't matter, she said. Okay. It doesn't. Okay. You're not going to ask? No. She turned and stared at him. Why not? Because you don't want me to, Ethan said. And because I know what it feels like when somebody asks. Something moved behind her eyes. Your wife, she said quietly. Yeah, I'm sorry. In 4 years I never said anything about it, and I always thought that was rude, but I didn't know how to. You were the only one who didn't, he said. That's why I always liked you. Claire blinked at him. Ethan sat down on the step. 2 feet of space between them, elbows on knees. A man built like a doorframe, folding himself down small so as not to crowd anybody. After Sarah died, he said, everybody on this street brought me a casserole. Everybody. I had a chest freezer full of noodles and grief, and every single person who handed me one looked me right in the eye and said, how are you holding up? He turned the rag over in his hands. You know what nobody ever said? Hey Ethan, your gutter's clogged. Nobody ever said your grass is a foot high. Nobody ever just talked to me like a guy. For about 2 years I wasn't a person anymore. I was a situation. Claire didn't move. You, he said, waved. You waved at me like I was a neighbor. 4 years every morning wave, like nothing was wrong with me. He glanced over. You have no idea what that was worth. Claire Whitmore opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then she said in a voice he had to lean in to hear, That's the only thing I know how to do for anyone. Yeah, Ethan said. Well, it's more than most. They sat there a while. Somewhere down the block, a lawnmower started up. Millie Henderson's sprinkler ticked around and around. The light went that color. It goes at 7 o'clock in June. The color that makes even a street full of vinyl siding look like something worth remembering. He's coming Saturday, Claire said. Grant. Grant. With his boat and his catalog and his suitability. My mother's already booked the restaurant. She booked the restaurant, Ethan. She didn't ask if I wanted to go. She asked if I had anything appropriate to wear. Her hands were shaking. She looked down at them like they belonged to someone else. And the worst part, the absolute worst part, is that I said yes. Because I always say yes. Because it's easier than the conversation. Because if I say no, she says, Claire, you can't do this forever, and then she says the thing. She stopped. What thing? Ethan asked before he could stop himself. Claire's jaw went tight. She says I'm being dramatic, Claire said. About the thing I'm not being dramatic about. About the thing that actually... Her voice went to pieces. She pressed her fingers to her eyes. She thinks it's a phase. 4 years and she thinks it's a phase, and if I try to explain it, she looks at me like I'm a light fixture she needs to replace. And I don't have the words. I've never had the words. And everybody keeps handing me men like that's the same as handing me an answer. She was crying now. Openly. Ugly. Not the polite kind. And Ethan Carter, who had pulled a 14-year-old out of a stairwell in 2011 and gotten a commendation for it, sat there on a concrete step and could not think of one single useful thing to do. So he did what he always did when he couldn't fix a thing. He made a joke. Well, he said, maybe you should just marry me. Claire went still. I mean, look at the market. He gestured vaguely at himself, the ruined jeans, the bleeding thumb, the 12-year-old truck in the driveway. No boat, no Aspen, no suitability whatsoever. I've got a kid who thinks ketchup is a food group and a mortgage that hates me personally. Your mother would need an ambulance. He grinned at the porch rail. But hey, at least you'd know what you're getting. He waited. He waited for the laugh. He needed the laugh because he'd read the room wrong, maybe. And the joke was already curdling in his mouth, and 8 years of being alone had made him worse at this than he used to be, and Claire hadn't moved. She was staring at him. Her face was wet. Her mouth was open slightly, and she was staring at him with an expression Ethan had never seen on another human being, not shock, not offense, not amusement. Something underneath all three of those, something like recognition. Claire, he said. Hey, I'm sorry that was stupid. That was a stupid thing to... She stood up. Claire. She came down one step. Then she reached out, and she took his wrist. Kung. The grip surprised him. That was the thing he'd remember later. Lying awake at 2 a.m, staring at his ceiling. Not the joke, not the tears, the grip. Claire Whitmore had a designer's hands, small, careful, manicured, and when she closed them around his forearm, it was like being caught in a door. Claire. She pulled. She actually pulled him, and Ethan came up off that step half because she pulled, and half because he was too stunned not to, and she walked backward, up her own porch without letting go, and without breaking eye contact, and without saying one single word. Hey! Hey! Claire! Stop! She didn't stop. Through the front door. He got a flash of it. The entryway everybody on Merrick Lane had spent 4 years speculating about, and it was just an entryway. Gray walls, a mirror, a bowl for keys. Nothing. Nothing. The most disappointing mystery in America. And then the door swung shut behind him, and she reached back and threw the deadbolt without looking. Clack. Ethan Carter stood in Claire Whitmore's front hall with his wrist in her hand and his heart going like a hammer. Claire. His voice came out low. Careful. The voice he used on people in shock. People at the edges of roofs. People who had stopped being able to hear reason. Claire, look at me. Whatever you're about to do, I need you to... She turned and started down the hall, still holding him. Claire, stop. No, she said. That was it. That was the first word she'd said since he'd made the joke. Claire, I don't know what you think I meant, but I was kidding. Do you hear me? It was a joke. It was a dumb joke. I was trying to make you laugh. I know. Then what are you... I know it was a joke, Claire said. and her voice was absolutely terrifyingly calm. That's why. And Ethan, in that hallway in a house he'd never been in, felt the floor go out from under a life he'd spent 8 years bolting down. Yuck. He could have stopped her. That's the thing. He outweighed her by 90 pounds. He'd carried grown men down ladders. He could have planted his feet and she'd have been pulling on a fire hydrant. He didn't. Later, he'd try to explain it to himself and fail. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't anything you'd need to explain to a priest. It was that Claire Whitmore was walking down that hallway like a woman walking into cold water, like someone who had decided something, and Ethan had spent his whole adult life around people at the exact moment they decided something, and you do not stop them. You go with them. The hallway was longer than it looked from outside. Photographs on the wall. Frames on the wall. Empty ones. 6 of them evenly spaced, professionally hung, and not one of them had a picture in it. Ethan's mouth went dry. Claire. She stopped at the last door on the left. She let go of his wrist. For a second, she just stood there, with her hand flat against the wood. Her back to him, her shoulders rising and falling, and the whole house was so quiet, Ethan could hear the refrigerator running 2 rooms away. Nobody's been in here, Claire said. Claire. Not my mother, not my father, not the cleaning service. I do this room myself. I've done it myself for 4 years. Her voice was shaking now, finally, the calm going out of it like air. Not the man in February. Not Preston. Not anyone. 4 years, Ethan. Not one person. Then don't, Ethan said quietly. Don't do this because I made a stupid joke on your porch. Claire, listen to me. You don't owe me anything. I'll walk out that door right now and I'll never say a word about it. And tomorrow I'll wave at you like nothing happened. That's exactly it, she said. What? Claire turned around. Her face was wrecked. Her eyes were red. And she was looking at him with a kind of desperate, furious clarity, like someone who has finally found the one person in the world who might speak her language and is terrified he'll leave before she can finish the sentence. Everybody in my life, she said, has spent 4 years trying to fix me. My mother, my father, every man. They've marched through my front hall like a catalog. They all want the same thing, Ethan. They all want me to be done, to be finished, to wrap it up and move on and be normal again. Her hands had made fists. And then you sat on my step and made a joke about marrying me, and it was cruel. It was a terrible thing to say to me, and you had no idea at all. Claire, And it was the first time in 4 years, she said, that anyone has talked to me like I was a person. Ethan couldn't breathe. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Her voice broke wide open. You joked. Nobody jokes with me. Nobody has joked with me since... She stopped, swallowed, started again. They handle me. They manage me. They speak to me in that voice, that awful, gentle voice, like I'm a woman in a hospital bed, and you sat there with grease on your hands and you made a dumb joke. And Ethan, I have wanted to be a person somebody could make a dumb joke to for 4 years. She was sobbing. And I can't explain it, she said. I can't explain it to them, and I've stopped trying. And I'm so tired, I am so tired, so I'm not going to explain it to you either. She put her hand on the doorknob. I'm going to show you. Claire. You said I'd know what I'm getting. She was breathing like a runner. So now you're going to know what you're getting. That's fair. That's fair, isn't it? That's the deal. You said it, not me. That's not what You want to marry me? She laughed, and it was the worst sound Ethan had ever heard come out of a human being. Fine. Then look. Everyone else gets a smile and a wave and a bottle of wine at the block party. You made a joke, so you get this. Claire. Because if you walk out of here after, she said, and her voice dropped to almost nothing, then at least I'll know. At least I'll finally know for sure that nobody can. And Ethan Carter, 35 years old, widower, contractor, father of 1, a man who had spent 8 years being very, very careful, heard himself say, I'm not going to walk out. Claire went still. You don't know that? No, he agreed. I don't. Then why would you say it? Because somebody should have said it to you 4 years ago, Ethan said, and I'm the only one standing here. Her chin came up, her eyes were streaming, and then Claire Whitmore turned the knob. The door opened. Ethan stepped in, and every single thing he thought he knew about the woman across the street, every theory Millie Henderson had ever floated over a fence, every assumption he'd built in 4 years of waving at a silver Lexus, every ounce of the sick, embarrassed dread he'd been carrying down that hallway, died in his chest in about a second and a half, because it wasn't a bedroom, not really. There was a bed unslept in, made with hotel precision. There was a window with the blinds drawn tight. And there was, against the far wall, floor to ceiling, wall to wall, a shrine. Photographs. Hundreds. Taped, pinned, framed, layered 3 deep. A man with dark hair and a crooked smile over and over in 100 different lights. Him laughing on a beach. Him asleep on a couch. Him in a hospital gown with a tube in his arm and a paper crown on his head, grinning like an idiot, holding a sign that somebody had made him that said, Day 41. There was a corkboard covered in what Ethan slowly recognized as medical paperwork. Discharge forms. Appointment cards. A chart hand-drawn on graph paper in green marker. Tracking something numbers, dates a line that climbed and then went off a cliff. There was a dress. A wedding dress in a garment bag hanging on the back of the closet door, still sealed, the tags still on it. And on the nightstand in a small open box, sitting on velvet, 2 rings. Ethan Carter stood in the middle of that room and could not make a sound. Behind him, very quietly, Claire Whitmore said, His name was Daniel. Ethan turned around. She was in the doorway, not coming in. 4 years of not coming in, maybe standing right there on the threshold with her arms wrapped around herself and her whole face open like a wound. They think I'm sad, she whispered. Ethan, they think I'm sad. They think I'm a woman who's sad and needs to meet somebody nice. She looked past him at the wall, at the 100 crooked smiles. I'm not sad, Claire said. I'm guilty. And Ethan opened his mouth to ask, and she said it before he could fast, all at once, the way you rip off a bandage, the way you jump off something high. I'm the reason he's dead. Ethan didn't move. He'd heard a lot of sentences in his life that people couldn't take back. He'd heard them in kitchens at 3 in the morning, and on shoulders of highways, and once in a church parking lot, from a man who'd just found out what his son had done. He knew the shape of them. He knew that the worst thing you could do with a sentence like that was flinch. So he didn't flinch. Say it again, he said. Claire's head came up. What? Say it again. Why? Because you've been holding that in your mouth for 4 years, Ethan said, and it just came out for the first time, and I want you to hear what it sounds like out loud. Don't do that. Do what? That. Her arms tightened around herself. That thing where you talk to me like I'm on a ledge. You are on a ledge. I'm in my bedroom. Claire, don't. Her voice cracked. Don't be good at this. That's not fair. I brought you in here so you'd look at that wall and get scared and leave, and now you're standing there being good at it, and that's not what I... She stopped. She pressed the back of her hand against her mouth. 7:14 in the evening. Down the hall, the refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a screen door banged and a kid yelled something about a hose. Okay, Ethan said. You want me to leave? Silence. Claire. Real question. You want me to walk out that door right now? No. Say it louder than that. No, she said. No, God, no. Okay. He turned back around and looked at the wall, and he made himself really look, because she'd been alone in here with it for 4 years, and the least he could do was give it 30 honest seconds. Then tell me about him. That's not how this goes. How does it go? They ask what happened, Claire said. That's the order. That's always the order. They ask what happened, and they make the face, and then they say something about how he'd want me to be happy. Ethan snorted before he could stop himself. Claire's eyes snapped to him. What? Nothing. No what? That's the casserole. he said. That's the exact same thing. That's how are you holding up with a different hat on. And Claire Whitmore made a sound in her throat that wasn't a laugh and wasn't a sob, and was maybe the first honest thing that had come out of her in 4 years. Yes, she whispered. Yes, that's it. That's it. Yeah, well. He nodded at the photographs. So I'm not asking what happened. I'm asking who he was. Those are different questions. Claire's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Nothing. She stood in that doorway for a long, long moment, and Ethan watched something come apart in her face, slow, the way a wall comes apart, brick by brick, not all at once. Nobody's ever asked me that, she said. 4 years. 4 years. Then I'll go first, Ethan said, and pointed at the photo in the middle, the one with the paper crown. Who wears a crown in a hospital? Claire laughed. It caught her completely off guard. It came out of her like something breaking loose, and she clapped a hand over her mouth, and her eyes flooded, and she laughed anyway, wet and awful and real. He made it, she said. He made it. Out of a get-well card, from my aunt. He said if he had to be in there, he was going to be in charge. She was crying and laughing at the same time now, and she didn't seem to know it. He made the nurses call him Your Majesty for 6 weeks. There was a woman named Rhonda who actually did it. He got a woman named Rhonda to call him Your Majesty. That's a hell of a man. He was an idiot, Claire said, and her voice went to pieces on the word. He was such an idiot, he was the biggest idiot I've ever met in my entire life. 7:19. She was still standing in the doorway. She hadn't come in. Ethan noticed that. He didn't say it. What was the number for? He asked. What beer? The sign, day 41. And that was the moment Claire Whitmore stopped laughing. Ethan watched it happen. He watched her whole body change, a shutter dropping, and he thought there. That's the room, inside the room. Claire. He was counting, she said. Counting what? Days, since he started. Her voice had gone flat and small. Day 1 was the first infusion. He said if he was going to do it, he was going to do it out loud. He made a sign every single day. He put them up in the window so I could see them from the parking lot, because visiting hours were 4 to 8, and I worked until 7. And I hated that I couldn't be there, so he made me signs. She swallowed. Day 1, day 2, all the way up. How high did he get? 53. Ethan didn't say anything. 53, Claire said again, and then he stopped making them. Because he got worse. No. She looked at him, and there was something terrible and steady in her eyes now. Because on day 53, he told me he wanted to stop. 7:22. Stop the treatment, Ethan said quietly. Stop everything. Claire's hands had started to shake. He sat up in that bed and he took my hand and he said, Claire, I want to go home. He said I want to go home and sit in the yard, and I want to marry you in the yard, and I want 3 good weeks instead of 8 bad ones. Her breath hitched. He'd talked to the doctor. He'd already talked to the doctor. He knew the numbers better than I did. He'd known for a month. He was waiting until he could say it without crying, because he didn't want me to remember him crying. What did you say? I said no. The word landed in that room like a dropped tool. I said no, Claire said. I said absolutely not. I said you don't get to do that. You don't get to just quit on me. I said we had a wedding booked in November and a deposit down, and I said, Daniel, you promised me. And he sat there and he let me scream at him. Her face was wet and she wasn't wiping it anymore. He let me scream at him in a hospital room while he was dying, Ethan. And then he said, okay. He said, okay, Claire. He said, okay, I'll keep going. Claire, do you understand? Her voice tore. He didn't want it. He wanted to go home. He wanted 3 weeks in a yard, that's all he wanted. That's the only thing he asked me for in 11 years, and I said no because I couldn't, because I was so scared, because I thought if he stopped fighting that meant he was choosing to leave me, and I made him stay in that room. How long? 11 days. Claire. 11 more days, she said. That's what I bought. 11 days, and he was unconscious for 6 of them, and he never went home, and he never sat in the yard, and the last real conversation we ever had was me yelling at him. She was sobbing now, standing in a doorway she wouldn't cross, and Ethan Carter stood 4 feet away with his hands empty at his sides. So you can put that in your catalog, Claire said. That's what my mother's trying to marry off. That's the whole product. Tell Grant. Tell Preston. Tell all of them. 7:26. Ethan said, "How many people have you told that?" Claire didn't answer. Claire. "None," she said. "Not your mother. Especially not my mother." "Why not?" And Claire laughed, and it was so bitter it made Ethan's chest hurt. "Because she'd forgive me." He stared at her. "Do you understand?" She was almost shouting now. She'd say, "Oh, sweetheart, you were frightened, anyone would have." She'd say, "That's not your fault, darling," and she'd pat my hand and book a restaurant, and it would be over. It would be processed. It would be handled. And I would have to live the rest of my life knowing that the worst thing I ever did got waved off like a parking ticket. Her fists were white. "I'm not asking to be forgiven. I did it. I know I did it. I want somebody to look at me and know I did it and stay in the room anyway." The house went quiet. Ethan looked at the wall of photographs. He looked at the wedding dress with the tag still on. He looked at the 2 rings in the box on the nightstand, which had never been on anybody's hands. "Okay," he said. Claire blinked. "Okay. You did it." Her mouth fell open. "You did it," Ethan said. "You told a dying man to keep going when he wanted to stop. He stayed 11 days he didn't want to stay. He didn't get his yard." He didn't look away from her. Not once. "That happened. That's real. That's yours." Claire made a sound like she'd been hit. "And I'm still standing here," he said. 7:28. She came apart. Not gracefully. Not like the movies. Claire Whitmore's legs went out from under her, and she sat down hard in her own doorway, with her back against the frame, and put her face in her hands, and howled. And it was the loudest sound that house had heard in 4 years. And Ethan crossed the room in 2 steps, and did not touch her, because she hadn't asked, and sat down on the floor across from her with his back against the bed frame, and let her do it. It went on for a while. At some point she said something into her hands that he couldn't hear. "Say it again." "I said thank you," Claire said. "For what?" "For not saying it wasn't my fault." "It might not be," Ethan said. "Don't. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm saying I don't know, and neither do you, and anybody who tells you they know is selling something." He rubbed his face with both hands. "But that's a different conversation than the one you're having with yourself in here. And you've been having yours alone." Claire lifted her head. Her eyes were destroyed. "You know what the sick part is," she said. "Tell me." "I don't have a single picture of us." Ethan looked up. "That whole wall," she said. "Look at it. Every one of those is him. Him alone. Him with his brother. Him with a dog he didn't even own. There's not one photograph in this entire house of Daniel and me together." "Why? Because I took them all," Claire said. "Every single one. 11 years I was the one holding the camera. And I never thought about it once, not one time, because there was always going to be more." Her voice went thin. "There's no picture of us. I have 300 pictures of him, and not one of us, and I'm the one who did that." "Claire, that's why the frames in the hall are empty," she said. "I bought them the week after. I was going to fill them. I stood in that hallway with a box of frames, and I went through every photo I owned, and there wasn't one. There wasn't one." 7:34. Ethan said very quietly, "There's 12 voicemails on my phone." Claire went still. "From Sarah," he said. "My wife." "Ethan, you showed me your room." He was looking at the floor. "That's mine." "You don't have to." "No," he agreed. I don't. And then he told her anyway, because she was sitting in a doorway with her whole life spread out on a wall behind her, and it was the only decent thing left to do. She had a headache, he said. That's it. That's the whole thing. She had a headache on a Thursday and I was on shift and she called me at 11:40 in the morning and I didn't pick up because I was at a call. Duplex fire on Delmar. Kitchen fire. Nothing, we had it knocked down in 20 minutes. He turned his hands over. She called again at 11:50, then 12:05, then 12:11, 12:20, 12:31. Claire had stopped breathing. 12 calls, Ethan said. Between 11:40 and 2:15. I had my phone in my locker because that's where it goes. That's the rule. That's what you do. And I came off shift, and there were 12 calls and 1 voicemail. And by then, she'd been on the kitchen floor for 2 hours and a half, and Lily was at school, and there was nobody in that house. Ethan, aneurysm, he said. They told me it wouldn't have mattered. They told me, and I want you to hear this, Claire. They told me even if I'd been standing in that kitchen holding her hand, it wouldn't have mattered. The doctor said it 3 times. He said it like he was hammering a nail. Did you believe him? Ethan looked up at her. No, he said. Claire closed her eyes. I've never listened to the voicemail, he said. What? 8 years. He shrugged, and it was the most terrible shrug Claire had ever seen. It's still there. I pay for the storage. There's a company that stores it now because the phone's 4 phones ago. $40 a year to keep a voicemail I've never played. Why not? Because if it says Ethan help me, he said, then I know. 7:41. Claire Whitmore looked across 4 feet of carpet at a man she'd waved at for 4 years and understood all at once with a force that took the air out of her that she had spent that entire time waving at someone who was drowning in the exact same water. You wave at me every morning, she said. Yeah. With that in your pocket. Yeah. Ethan. Her voice broke. How do you do that? You've got a kid, you get up, he said. That's it? That's the whole trick? There's no trick. She needs breakfast at 7, so you get up at 6:40 and that's the thing that holds the floor up. He rubbed the back of his neck. Some days that's the only thing holding the floor up. Some days I'm honestly not sure who's raising who. That's not fair to her. I know. That's a lot to put on an 8-year-old. I know, Ethan said, and it came out harder than he meant, and he stopped, and he laughed at himself 1 dry syllable. Sorry. You're the first person who's ever said that to me, and it turns out I've been waiting for somebody to say it so. Ethan. She asked me last year if I was ever going to be happy again, he said. 8 years old. She wasn't being sad about it. She was asking, like she wanted to know the schedule. What'd you tell her? I told her I was happy. Were you? No. The word sat there. And then from somewhere down the hall from the front of the house, there was a knock. Both of them froze. Dad! Ethan's head came up so fast, he cracked it on the bed frame. Lily! 7:44. Dad, are you in there? Miss Whitmore? Dad, your phone's ringing on the driveway, and it's the school, and also there's a bike in the yard, and I'm supposed to be inside, but you've been gone 26 minutes. Claire's eyes went enormous. She scrambled up off the floor, and Ethan came up with her, and for one absolutely absurd second, the two of them stood there in the middle of the room, like teenagers who'd heard a car in the driveway. Oh my God, Claire whispered. It's fine. Ethan, the door she'll see. She can't see the... Claire. She can't see this room, she's 8. Claire. He caught her by the shoulders, first time he'd touched her. She stopped dead. Look at me. It's fine. She's not going to come down the hall. She's the most polite human being in North America. She's standing on your porch right now, apologizing to your doorbell. Dad, I'm not coming in, Lily called. I'm being polite, but I am going to keep talking. Claire made a noise. It took Ethan a second to realize it was a laugh. Told you, he said. Oh my God, she's yours. That's a whole tiny you. Yeah, well, she's better at it. He let go of her shoulders, stepped back. I gotta go out there. I know. Claire. He stopped in the doorway. He didn't turn around. Listen. What you told me in here. You don't have to say it. I'm going to say it anyway because you've had 4 years of people not saying things, and I'd rather be clumsy than be one more of those. He turned around. It doesn't leave this house. Not to Millie Henderson, not to my daughter, not to anybody. Ever. If you and I never speak again, if you see me on this street tomorrow and look right through me, that's fine. That's your right, and it still doesn't leave this house. You understand? Claire stood in the wreckage of the only room she'd ever been honest in and looked at him. Why? She said. Why what? Why are you being like this? And Ethan Carter said, because I've been standing outside a door for 8 years too, Claire. Mine's just got a phone company on the other side of it. 7:47. He went down the hall. He opened her front door, and there was Lily Carter on the porch, with her hands folded in front of her, like a Sunday school kid, and he said, "Hey, Bug." And she said, "You were gone 27 minutes now." And he said, "I'm aware." And she looked past him down the hall at Claire Whitmore, standing 40 feet away with a ruined face. Lily didn't say anything about the face. She said, "Hi, Miss Whitmore. Your house smells like oranges." And Claire from all the way down the hall, in a voice that cracked in half, said, It's a candle. It's an orange candle." "I like it," Lily said. "Dad, your phone rang. It was the school. It rang twice." "Okay." "I didn't answer it because it's not my phone." "That's right." "But it rang twice." "I'll call them back." "Okay." Lily hesitated. Then, with the devastating directness of an 8-year-old, "Miss Whitmore, are you okay? Because you look like you're not okay. And Dad says when people look like that, you're supposed to ask instead of pretending you didn't see." Ethan closed his eyes. Claire came down the hall. She came all the way to the door, and she crouched, and she looked Lily Carter in the eye, and Ethan watched a woman who hadn't let a human being past her front hall in 4 years say, "No, I'm not okay." Lily nodded seriously. "Is somebody being mean to you?" "Kind of." "Is it a grown-up?" "It's my mom." "Oh," Lily said. "Yeah, that's the worst kind." Claire laughed. It came out of her sideways, and she pressed her fingers to her mouth. "Do you want a hug?" Lily said. "You don't have to. Dad says you have to ask first, and he says if the person says no, that's a real answer, and you're not allowed to be sad about it." 7:51. Claire Whitmore said yes. And an 8-year-old hugged her in her own doorway, and Claire's face over that kid's shoulder was something Ethan would carry to his grave. Then Lily let go, stepped back, straightened her shirt like she'd concluded a business meeting, and said, "Okay, Dad, the school called twice." "Yeah, that's 2 times." "I got it." They were halfway down the walk when Claire said, "Ethan?" He turned around. She was standing in the doorway. She had her arms wrapped around herself again, but she was standing in it in the light where the whole street could see her. "Saturday," she said. "Grant." "Grant. You gonna go?" Claire opened her mouth. And Ethan would think about this later, and so would she. A car came around the corner. Black, slow, reading house numbers, the Mercedes. Claire's face drained so fast, Ethan thought she might go down. "They came back," she whispered. "Claire. They came back, they never come back, they never—" The Mercedes stopped. The door opened, and Vivian Whitmore got out of the car and stood in the street in her expensive coat and looked without any hurry at all at the tableau in front of her. Her daughter in the doorway with a wrecked face and a man in ruined jeans with grease on his hands walking down her front path, and a child. 7:54. "Claire?" Vivian called pleasantly. "Mother?" "Who's this?" "He's my neighbor." "I can see he's your neighbor, darling. He's standing on your lawn." Vivian smiled. She had a beautiful smile. It didn't get anywhere near her eyes. "I meant, who is he?" Ethan said, "Ethan Carter, ma'am," and put his hand out. Vivian looked at the hand. She looked at the grease on it. And she said, "I don't think so," and turned back to her daughter, and Lily Carter's little head snapped up like she'd heard a gunshot. "Hey," Lily said. "Lily." Ethan's hand came down on her shoulder. She didn't shake your hand. Lil, you always shake the hand, that's a rule. Lily, go wait by the truck. But she... Now. She went. She was furious. She went anyway. Vivian Whitmore watched all of it with an expression of mild anthropological interest. Charming, she said. Claire, I forgot my scarf. I'm coming in for 1 minute and then I want to talk about Saturday because Marguerite called and they need a count by Thursday. And she started up the walk, toward the house, toward the front door, which was standing wide open with a hallway behind it and 6 empty frames on the wall, and at the end of it, a door that hadn't been open for 4 years, which was standing open too. Claire didn't move. Ethan saw it. He saw her not move. He saw her hand come up to the doorframe and grip it and go white, and he saw her mouth open and nothing come out, and he understood in one horrible clean flash that Claire Whitmore was not going to be able to stop her mother from walking down that hall, because she had never once in her entire life been able to stop that woman from walking anywhere. 7:56. Ethan Carter stepped sideways. He put himself in the walk. Ma'am, he said, it is not a good time. Vivian stopped. She actually stopped. She looked at him the way you look at a piece of furniture that is spoken. Excuse me. It's not a good time, Ethan said again, perfectly pleasant, perfectly immovable, 6'2" of contractor standing on a concrete path in the last of the light. Your daughter's had a rough evening. Yes, Vivian said. I imagine she has. I'm her mother. Yes, ma'am. So I'll be going in. No, ma'am. Behind him, Claire made a small sound. Vivian Whitmore's chin lifted 1/4 of an inch, and something came into her face that had not been there before. Interest. Cold, bright, surgical interest. What is your name again? Ethan Carter. And what do you do, Mr. Carter? Home repair. Home repair. She said it like a foreign word. She looked past him at 1412's fresh paint at the porch light at the deck he'd rebuilt for the Hendersons 2 doors down, and could see from here. And how long have you been repairing my daughter's home? Mother? I've never touched your daughter's home, ma'am. Haven't you? Vivian smiled again. Well, something's certainly been going on in it. Mother. Claire, sweetheart, I'm being friendly. She didn't look away from Ethan. Not once. Mr. Carter, may I tell you something since we're being neighborly? My daughter is a very generous woman with a very large amount of money and an extremely soft heart, and every so often somebody notices that. It's happened before. It'll happen again. Her voice never rose. That was the frightening part. I'm sure you're a lovely man. I'm sure Saturday will come and go and none of this will matter at all. But I want you to hear me say out loud on this nice little street that I am paying attention. Ethan didn't move. Are you finished? He said. Vivian's eyebrows went up. Because I want to make sure you're finished, he said, before I say my part. 7:58. By all means, Vivian said. I've lived across from your daughter for 4 years, Ethan said. In 4 years, I have never been inside that house until tonight. In 4 years, I've never seen a single car in that driveway except hers. In 4 years, ma'am, I have never once seen you come to this street unless you wanted something from her. He paused. Tonight, she was standing in that doorway crying so hard she couldn't stand up straight, and your taillights were already at the stop sign. Vivian Whitmore's face did not change, but her hand at her side closed. So no, Ethan said. You're not going in. Not tonight. Not to get a scarf. The street was so quiet you could hear Millie Henderson's sprinkler 4 houses down ticking around and around. Then Vivian said softly, You have a daughter. Ethan went absolutely still. She's a beautiful child, Vivian said. She's got your mouth. And you've clearly done all of it alone, which is admirable, truly. She adjusted her coat. It must be very hard, doing it alone. With a truck like that. Mother, stop. I'm complimenting him. You're not. Claire? And now Vivian turned, and for the first time all evening there was something real in her voice, and it was worse than everything that had come before it because it was love. It was actual love, delivered like a blade. I have watched you throw 4 years of your life into a hole in the ground. 4 years. I have watched you turn into a woman who waves at people. And I am not going to stand here and watch you do it again with a sad one. Claire's whole body flinched. There it is, Ethan said. Vivian looked at him. That's the thing, right? His voice was very calm. That's what she's scared of. She's not scared of Saturday. She's not scared of Grant. She's scared that 4 years ago something happened to her, and everybody decided the deadline for it was up. And now the clock's running. And every time she opens her mouth to explain, somebody's already booked a restaurant. You've known my daughter for 1 evening. Yes, ma'am. And you think you know her? No, Ethan said. But I know what it's like when your grief has a schedule, and it's not yours. Vivian Whitmore said nothing, and Claire in the doorway said, Mother. Claire. I'm not going Saturday. 8:01. Vivian turned around very slowly. I beg your pardon. I'm not going Saturday. Claire's voice was shaking so hard the words came out in pieces, but they came out. Call Marguerite. Tell her the count is 1 less. Tell Grant, tell Dad, tell whoever you have to tell. I'm not going. Claire, we have discussed. No, we haven't. It ripped out of her. We have never discussed anything, not one time, not once in 4 years. You announce things. You announce them, and I say yes, because saying no costs more than I have, and I'm mother, I am out. I'm out of it. I don't have it anymore. There's nothing left in the account. You are being... Don't. Dramatic. Don't. The word went up the street like a shot. Somewhere a dog started barking. 2 doors down, Millie Henderson's curtain moved, and did not move back. Claire Whitmore stood in her doorway with tears running off her jaw and her hands in fists, and she said quietly, You have called me dramatic 11 times in 4 years. I've counted. I have a list. Mother, I keep an actual list, because there is something wrong with me now, and that's one of the things it does. Vivian's mouth opened. Go home, Claire said. Please, please go home. I'll call you. I will, I promise I'll call you. Just please get in the car and go home. And Vivian Whitmore stood on that lawn for a long, long moment, and then she said in a voice nobody on Merrick Lane had ever heard her use, Your scarf. What? I said I forgot my scarf. Vivian was looking at the porch light. I didn't. I don't own a scarf, Claire. I've never owned a scarf in my life. I drove around the block 4 times. Claire stopped breathing. I'm not good at this, Vivian said. I'm aware that I'm not good at this. Your father says I make things worse and then bill them as help. She smoothed her coat with a hand that was not entirely steady. I came back because you were crying and I drove away and I got to the highway and I turned around. Mother, don't. Vivian's chin came up and the mask went back on, and it happened so fast that Ethan actually flinched because he'd seen that exact move on the porch an hour ago, and he understood in 1 sickening second where Claire Whitmore had learned it. I'll call you Thursday about the count. Mother. Thursday, Claire. She got in the car, she shut the door, and the Mercedes pulled away down Merrick Lane doing exactly the speed limit and turned the corner and was gone. 8:06. Claire sat down on her top step. Ethan sat down next to her. 2 feet of space. Same as before. Neither of them said anything for a while. I've never done that, Claire finally said. I know. I've never done that. In 33 years. Not once. I know. My hands won't stop shaking. They will. Ethan. She turned and looked at him, and her eyes were huge and wet and wide open. What did you do? I didn't do anything. You made a joke, she said. You made a joke on my step 3 hours ago, and I have told you the worst thing I've ever done. And I said no to my mother in my own front yard, and there's a child in your truck, and I don't understand what's happening. Claire. I don't understand what's happening to me. Claire. He waited until she looked at him. Breathe. She breathed. Again. She breathed. Okay, Ethan said. Claire wiped her face with both hands, and then she laughed once helplessly and said, "Your daughter's staring at us." "Yeah, she's been staring at us for 6 minutes." "Is she going to ask you about this?" "Oh, she's going to interrogate me," Ethan said. "There's going to be a deposition." "What are you going to tell her?" "That my neighbor had a bad day." "That's it." "That's it," he said. "That's all anybody needs to know." Claire looked at him for a second too long. Then she said, "Come back tomorrow." Ethan's head turned. I don't mean God." She laughed and pressed her hands to her face. "I mean, my gutter's clogged." "Your gutter's clogged." "My gutter is extremely clogged," Claire said. "And nobody has ever once said that to me. And you said that's the thing nobody says, and so I'm saying it. My gutter's clogged. Come look at my gutter." Ethan Carter sat on the step in the dark and felt something move in his chest that he hadn't felt in 8 years and didn't have a name for. "Yeah," he said. Okay. 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock. He stood up. He got 2 steps down the walk. "Ethan." He turned. Claire was standing in her doorway. Behind her, all the way down the hall past 6 empty frames, the door at the end was still open. "You said your voicemail's still there," she said. He didn't answer. "How much is it?" Claire said to keep it. $40 a year. For 8 years. "Yeah," Claire nodded slowly. "That's $320, she said, to not know. And she went inside and shut the door, and Ethan Carter stood on Merrick Lane in the dark, in front of a house he'd waved at for 4 years and could not move. 9:02. The next morning, Ethan Carter was up a ladder with his arms in 4 years of somebody else's leaves. "That's disgusting," Claire said from the grass. "Yep." "What is that? Is that a nest?" "Was a nest." "Was whoever lived here moved out around the Obama administration?" Claire laughed, and Ethan heard it and made a note of it the way he made notes of things that mattered. She'd come out at 8:50. She'd been wearing actual jeans, which he had never seen on her in 4 years, and no makeup, which he had never seen on her at all, and she looked like she'd slept about 9 minutes. "You want the honest assessment," he said. "No." "You're getting the honest assessment." "I know I'm getting the honest assessment. I've met you. It's been 14 hours. Your downspouts disconnected on the north corner. That's why you've got that stain on the siding you've been painting over." Claire's mouth opened. "How do you know I've been painting over it?" "Because it's a different white." "It is not a different white." "Claire, it is the same white. I am an interior designer." "It's a different white, and it's from 2023, because they changed the base formula, and it's been quietly reading, 'I've got a problem I'm not dealing with' to every man on this street with a ladder for 2 years. Claire stood in her own yard with her arms crossed and stared up at him. "That's a metaphor," she said. "You're aware that's a metaphor." "It's a downspout." "Ethan, it's a downspout. Claire, not everything's about your childhood." And she laughed so hard she had to sit down on her own porch step, and Ethan, up on that ladder, found himself grinning at a gutter full of rot like an idiot. 9:26. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "Did she interrogate you?" "Oh, it was worse than I thought." He dumped a handful of sludge into the bucket. "She started at bedtime. Full cross-examination. Timeline witnesses, the whole thing." "What did she ask?" "She asked why you were crying. I said your mom was rough on you. She said, 'Is your mom rough on you a lot?' I said, 'I don't know.' She said, 'Well, that's a dumb answer, Dad,' and she was right, so." He wiped his hands. "Then she asked if you have friends." Claire went quiet. "I told her I didn't know that either," Ethan said. "What did she say?" "She said that's also a dumb answer." Ethan. "And then she said, and I want to be clear, I'm quoting an 8-year-old, she said, 'Dad, that lady has a whole house and nobody in it.'" Claire didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she said, "I have 3. "3 what?" "Friends. I have 3 friends." She pulled her knees up. "Marissa from the design program, who I haven't called since October. Beth, who moved to Denver. and a woman named Priya, who I text about work things, and who once 2 years ago asked me if I wanted to get a drink, and I said I was busy, and she never asked again, and I've thought about that maybe 400 times. Why'd you say you were busy? Because it was a Thursday, Claire said, and Thursday was the day he died, and I couldn't figure out how to say that in a text message without ruining her whole week, so I said I was busy. Ethan came down the ladder. Every Thursday. Every Thursday. For 4 years. For 4 years. He looked at her. Claire, he said. It's Wednesday. And Claire Whitmore put her face in her hands and said, I know. 9:41. He got the downspout reconnected by 10:30. She brought him a coffee he hadn't asked for in a mug that probably cost $30, and he drank it standing in her driveway because he had grease on him, and she didn't invite him in, and neither of them mentioned that, and it was somehow the best hour of his year. At 10:52, her phone rang. Claire looked at the screen, and Ethan watched her whole body change. It's my father, she said. You want me to go? No. Then yes. Then, I don't know. She answered it. Dad? Ethan heard nothing but the shape of the other voice, low, even, long. I know, Claire said. I know, Dad, I know. No, that's not Mother didn't. She didn't say that. A pause. She said what? Ethan set the coffee down. No, Claire said, and her voice went thin. No, that's not what happened. He was Dad. He was fixing my gutter. Another pause, and then quietly, in a voice Ethan hated instantly. Yes, sir. She hung up. She stood there holding the phone with both hands. Claire? He's coming. When? Now, she said. He's coming now. He's 40 minutes out. 11:01. Okay, Ethan said. Then I'll go. No. Claire, I'm not going to be the thing standing in your driveway when... He told my mother to have you looked into. Ethan stopped. That's what he said. Claire's face had gone gray. He said your mother's already having him looked into, and I'd rather hear it from you first. Ethan, in 14 hours, they've already... Yeah, Ethan said. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. There's nothing to find. That's not the point. I know it's not the point. He picked up his bucket. But it's the only part I can control, so it's the part I'm going to hold on to. 11:39. The car that came down Merrick Lane was not the Mercedes. It was worse. It was a plain, dark sedan, 4-year-old American, the kind of car a man drives when he has stopped needing anyone to know anything about him. Richard Whitmore got out. He was 63. He was not a big man. He had the closed-door jaw Ethan had seen from a driveway the night before, and he stood in the street and looked at 1412 for a long moment, before he looked at anything else. Claire, he said. Dad? You're in jeans. Yes. Huh, said Richard Whitmore, and Ethan thought, oh hell, this one's actually dangerous. Then Richard turned to him. Mr. Carter. Sir? You were a firefighter. Ethan didn't blink. Yes, sir. 14 years. 2 commendations. Left in 2018. Richard's voice had no edge in it at all, which was the edge. No debt to speak of. A mortgage you're 11 years into on a house worth about $230. A truck that should have been sold in 2020. 1 child. No record, no bankruptcies, no lawsuits, and a wife who died on a kitchen floor on a Thursday in April. Claire made a sound. That's what I know as of 9 this morning, Richard said. It cost me $400 and a phone call. I want you to understand that at the beginning, so we don't waste an hour. 11:43. Ethan set the bucket down. Okay, he said. You're not angry. No, sir. Why not? Because you'd have done the same thing, Ethan said, if it was your daughter. Richard Whitmore looked at him for about 3 full seconds. I am doing the same thing, he said. It is my daughter. Yes, sir. So we agree. And Richard Whitmore, for the first time in anybody's memory, looked mildly off balance. Dad, this is insane. Claire, go inside. I'm 33 years old. I'm aware. Then don't tell me to go. Claire. And then quieter, which was somehow worse. Please. She didn't go inside. She sat down on her porch step in her jeans, with her arms around her knees, and said no. Richard Whitmore stared at his daughter. Since when, he said, do you say no? Since yesterday, Claire said. 11:51. Richard turned back to Ethan and reached into his jacket. Don't, Claire said. Claire. Dad, don't, I swear to God, if you... He took out a checkbook, and Ethan Carter started laughing. It surprised everybody, including Ethan. It came out of him hard and honest and completely without malice, and he had to put a hand on the ladder. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry, sir, I'm not laughing at you. You seem to be. No, I'm laughing because my daughter is 8, and she watches a lot of television, Ethan said. And if I told her a rich man in a nice car pulled out a checkbook in a driveway, she would say, Dad, that's not real. That only happens in shows. And I would have to tell her that it is real that a man really did stand in a driveway and do the checkbook thing, and she would never trust me about anything again. Nobody moved. Then Richard said evenly, How much do you make in a year? 51,000. I'll write you a check for 200. Dad, $200,000, Richard Whitmore said. And you finish the gutter, and you wave at her from your driveway for the next 30 years, like you did for the last 4, and everybody's life gets easier. 11:54. Ethan looked at the check. He looked at it long enough that Claire's breath caught. That's 4 years, he said quietly. I beg your pardon? That's 4 years of my life. In your hand. Ethan's voice didn't change. You should know that. Not because I'm taking it. Because I want you to hear that I know exactly what it is, so you don't get to walk away from this street thinking I turned it down because I didn't understand the number. Richard's pen stopped. My furnace is 19 years old, Ethan said. My daughter needs braces in about 2 years, and I've got maybe a third of it. I've got a truck with a transmission that talks to me. And you're standing there with $200,000, and I want it, sir. I want it so bad my teeth hurt. Then take it. No. Why not? And Ethan said, Because your daughter's sitting right there. Richard Whitmore's head turned. Claire was on the step. She hadn't moved. Her eyes were enormous and wet and fixed on her father's hand. She's right there, Ethan said. She's watching you put a price on her. And if I take that, then that's the number forever. That's what she's worth. 200 grand, and the guy across the street took it in about 11 seconds. He shook his head. I got about $9 to my name that isn't spoken for, sir. But I'm not going to be the man who taught her that. 11:58. Nobody said anything. And then Claire Whitmore said in a very small voice, Dad, how many times have you done that? Richard didn't answer. Dad? Claire, how many times? And Richard Whitmore, 63 years old, standing in his daughter's driveway with a pen in his hand, said, Twice. The world stopped. Twice, Claire whispered. Claire. Who? It doesn't... Who? 12:01. A boy named Trevor in 2011, Richard said. You were 19. He took it in about 11 seconds. You cried for a month, and I have never once regretted it. Claire's hands were over her mouth. And... Claire. You said twice. Richard Whitmore looked at his shoes. Dad. Her voice had gone to nothing. Dad. Who was the second one? And he said Daniel. Claire came off that step like she'd been electrocuted. What? March, 2 months before the diagnosis. Richard's voice never rose. It never had. That was the thing about him. I offered him $150,000 to end it. You offered you... He turned it down. I know he turned it down, Claire screamed. He's dead. Dad, of course he turned it down. He's dead and he never told me. 12:03. And Richard Whitmore said, he told you. Claire stopped. What? He told you. Richard finally looked up and his eyes were red, and Ethan understood with a jolt that this was the first time this man had said any of it out loud ever to anyone. He called me that night. He said, "Mr. Whitmore, I'm going to tell her because I don't keep things from her." And I said, "Then tell her." And he did. He didn't. Claire. He never told me I would remember. He told you on a Sunday, Richard said, in your kitchen in the apartment on 5th, and you called me at 11 at night and you screamed at me for 11 minutes, and you didn't speak to me for 5 weeks. And then he got sick. His jaw worked. And you needed a father, so you let it go. And I let you let it go. Claire Whitmore stood in her driveway and did not breathe. "You forgot," Richard said quietly. "That's all. It's not a crime. You had 8 months of hell after that, and something had to fall out of the boat." "I forgot. Claire. I forgot the worst thing you ever did." Her voice tore. "I forgot that. What else did I forget, Dad? What else fell out of the boat?" And Richard Whitmore said nothing, which was an answer. 12:06. Ethan said very quietly, "Sir." "Mr. Carter." "Why'd you do it?" Richard's eyes came up. "You've got the file on me," Ethan said. "You know what I made. You know what I owe. You know what day my wife died. So I'm going to ask you the question you didn't ask him. Why'd you try to buy him off?" "Because I don't like being told my daughter's found a soulmate by a man with no assets." "That's not it." "Excuse me. That's the sentence you've been saying in your head for 4 years so you can sleep," Ethan said. "That's not it. I've been in a lot of houses with a lot of men saying the sentence that lets them sleep." He didn't move. "Why'd you do it, sir?" Silence. 12:08. And Richard Whitmore said, "Because I was afraid he'd leave." Claire made a sound like a wounded animal. "He was 31 years old with a laugh you could hear from the street," Richard said, "and my daughter looked at him like he'd invented weather. And I thought one day he's going to wake up and he's going to be gone, and she is not built for that. She has never been built for that." His voice finally cracked one hairline fracture, and it was the most violent thing that had happened on Merrick Lane in a decade. "So I offered him $150,000 to leave now, on a Tuesday, when she was 29 and could recover from it. Dad." "And he laughed at me," Richard said. "He said, 'Mr. Whitmore, that's the nicest thing anybody's ever said about me.'" Claire put her hand out and found the porch rail. "And then he left anyway," Richard said. "In the worst possible way. On the worst possible schedule. And I have spent 4 years watching the thing I was afraid of happen anyway, and worse, and I couldn't stop it. And every single man I've put in front of you since is because I don't know how to do anything else, Claire. I know how to buy things. That's all I know. I'm 63 years old, and I know how to buy things." 12:11. Nobody moved. Then Richard Whitmore closed the checkbook, put it back in his jacket, and said, "Mr. Carter, my apologies. That was beneath both of us." And he got in his car, and he drove away. 12:12. Claire sat down on the driveway. Not the step. The actual driveway on the concrete in her jeans, like her strings had been cut. Ethan sat down next to her. $200,000, she said. "Yep." "You said no." "Yep." "Ethan, my father just—" "I know. He offered Daniel money. I know. And I forgot." Her voice broke wide open. "Ethan, I forgot. What kind of person forgets that I've got a wall in there with 300 photographs on it, and I go over it every night like it's homework? I've got the whole 8 months memorized. I could tell you what he ate on day 30, and I forgot the worst fight of our entire relationship. Claire, what if I've got it wrong?" Ethan turned. "What if I've got all of it wrong?" She was shaking. "What if the hospital thing didn't happen the way I remember it? What if he didn't want to stop? What if I've been? What if I built a hole? What if I've spent 4 years being guilty for something that, hey, what if I made it up?" 12:15. Ethan said, "Do you have anything?" "What?" "Do you have anything from that day? Anything at all? A note, a card, a—" and Claire went absolutely perfectly still. Claire, there's a voicemail, she said. Ethan's whole body went cold. What? On the old phone. In the box. Her eyes had gone glassy. He left me a voicemail on day 53. That night. After I screamed at him. I saw it come in at 11 o'clock and I couldn't. I was in the parking garage and I couldn't listen to it, and then he was gone 11 days later and I never... Claire. I've never played it, she whispered. And the two of them sat on that driveway, 4 feet apart, and looked at each other. And Ethan Carter felt the entire architecture of the last 8 years of his life shift about an inch. 4 years, he said. 8 years, she said. Neither of them moved. 12:19. Okay, Ethan said. Here's the deal. Don't. Same day, same hour. Ethan, you play yours, I play mine. His voice wasn't steady. He didn't care. That's the deal. Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you to do a thing I've been too much of a coward to do for 8 years. Claire stared at him. You'd do that? No, Ethan said. That's the point. I wouldn't. I've had 8 years of chances and I've never come close. So the only way I'm ever going to do it is if somebody's sitting across from me doing it too. Yeah. That's insane, Ethan. Yeah. That's the most insane thing anybody's ever said to me in a driveway. Well, Ethan said, the checkbook's a close second. And Claire Whitmore laughed until she cried sitting on concrete and said, Okay. 12:22. They didn't do it that day. They didn't do it the next day either. Claire got the box out of her closet on Thursday and sat with it in her lap for 2 hours and put it back. Ethan drove to the storage company's website on Friday and got as far as the login screen and closed the laptop so hard the hinge complained. They talked about it exactly once on Saturday over her fence. Did you? No. No. Okay. 9 days went by. And in those 9 days, without either of them deciding anything, Ethan Carter started fixing Claire Whitmore's house. Not because she asked. Because there was a rotten board on the second step, and once he saw it, he couldn't unsee it, and then the storm door was hanging half a bubble out of True, and then the bathroom faucet, and Claire started coming out with coffee at 9, and then at 8:30, and then one Tuesday she came out at 8 with 2 coffees and a plate and said extremely casually, I made too much breakfast, which was the single least convincing sentence Ethan had ever heard a human being produce, and Lily started coming. That was the part nobody planned. Lily Carter, who did not like people who had spent 8 years being the most polite closed door in the state of Missouri, started walking across Merrick Lane after school with her backpack still on, and sitting on Claire Whitmore's porch step, doing her math homework while her father worked. Claire came out on the 4th day and sat down next to her. Hi, Lily said. Hi. I'm doing fractions. I hate fractions. Lily's head came up like a periscope. You hate fractions. Lily, I have a degree and I hate fractions. And that was it. That was the whole thing. That was how it happened. 4:12 on a Thursday. 17 days in Ethan came around the corner of the house with a level in his hand and stopped because Claire Whitmore was sitting on her step with his daughter. And his daughter was talking, actually talking the way she used to talk before, and Claire was listening with her whole body the way she'd never once let anybody listen to her, and Ethan stood there with a level in his hand and could not go around that corner. He stood there for 2 full minutes. Then he went the other way. 4:31. He was in his own kitchen with his hands on the counter and his heart going like a hammer when Lily came in. Dad? Hey, Bug. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're doing the thing. What thing? The counter thing. She dropped her backpack. You do the counter thing when you're not fine. Lil. Miss Whitmore says I ask too many questions. Miss Whitmore is right. She said it like it was a compliment, Lily said, and got a juice box and stabbed it with a straw, and said with the pure lethal offhandedness of a child, Dad, are you going to marry Miss Whitmore? 4:33. Ethan Carter turned around. What? Are you going to marry her? Lily. It's a question. It's not a... He stopped. He made himself breathe. Where'd you get that, Millie? Millie Henderson. She was talking to the mailman. Lily shrugged. She said that's going to end in tears. And the mailman said which one, and Millie said the little one. Ethan's hands went numb. And I thought about it a lot, Lily said, for like 2 days, and I figured out that the little one means me. Lil? So are you? No, Ethan said. Why not? Because it's not Lily. It's not like that, we're not. Dad. And his 8-year-old daughter looked at him with her mother's exact eyes and said, You smile more when she's there. I noticed it on like the second day. I think you forgot how to do it before she came. 4:36. Ethan Carter sat down on his kitchen floor. He didn't mean to. His legs just stopped. Dad, I'm okay. You're on the floor. Yeah. He laughed, and it came out wrong. Yeah, I am. Lily came and sat down next to him with her juice box. Is it because of Mom? She said. And Ethan said, yeah. Okay, Lily said. Yeah. She sipped. I don't remember her. Ethan's chest caved in. I know I'm supposed to... Lily said very fast the way you say a thing you've practiced. And I know that's bad, and I never said it because you get the face. But I don't. I was little. I remember the couch. That's it. I remember there was a couch and somebody sang. She wouldn't look at him. So it's not the same. For me, it's not the same. And I've been thinking maybe you thought it was the same and that's why we never... Lily. I'm not sad, Dad, she said. That's the thing I've been trying to say for like 2 years. I'm not sad. You're sad, and I keep being okay at you, and you don't see it. 4:39. Ethan Carter put his face in his hands, and for the first time in 8 years in front of his daughter in his own kitchen on the floor, wept. Lily patted his shoulder. Twice. Very seriously. Do you want a hug? She said. You don't have to. If you say no, that's a real answer, and I'm not allowed to be sad about it. 5:02. He walked across the street at 9 that night. Claire opened the door before he knocked. She'd been at the window. She didn't pretend otherwise. Get the box, Ethan said. Claire's face changed. Now, right now, tonight, before I come to my senses. His voice was shot. Claire, I need you to get the box because my kid sat on the kitchen floor and told me she's not sad. And I have been sad at her for 8 years and I can't keep... Ethan, I need to know what's on it, he said. I need to know if it says help me. Because if I've got 8 more years of this in me, I need to know what I'm carrying. And right now, I'm carrying the heaviest possible version. I'm carrying the worst thing it could say every day for 8 years, and it might not even be true. Claire Whitmore looked at him for 3 seconds. Then she said, Come in. 9:04. They sat on her living room floor. Neither of them suggested the couch. The floor made sense somehow. She had the box. It was a shoebox. It had been a shoebox for 4 years. Inside it was a phone from 2021 and a charger with a bent prong. It might not turn on, she said. It'll turn on. It's been 4... Claire. It'll turn on. It turned on. 9:11. 9. Okay, Ethan said. He had his own phone in his hand. The storage company's login was up. His thumb was over the button. Okay. You're shaking. Yeah. Ethan, you go first. What? No, we said. Claire. I know what we said. I'm asking you to go first, because if you go first, then I have to. And if I go first, I might not. And Claire Whitmore said, No. Ethan looked up. Together, she said. Claire, together or not at all? Her hands were shaking so hard, the old phone rattled against her wedding ring, which she still wore, which she had worn every day for 4 years. Because if I go first and you don't, I will never forgive you, Ethan. I will never forgive you, and I will still wave at you every morning for 30 years. And that is the exact life I'm trying to get out of. 9:14. Ethan Carter looked at her. Okay, he said. 3, 3, 1, Claire said. 2. And they both pressed. 9:15. And a dead man said, "Hey, Claire Bear." And in Ethan's hand, a woman he'd buried 8 years ago said, "Hey, it's me. You're at a fire." Both of them stopped it, not on purpose. It was the same reflex at the same half-second, two thumbs slamming down on two screens, because the human brain is not built to hear two dead people talk at once. The room went silent. "Oh my God," Claire said. "Yeah. Oh my God, Ethan, I heard him. I forgot what his—" She had both hands over her mouth. "I forgot what he sounded like. 4 years, 300 photographs, and I forgot the sound." "I know." "How do you forget a sound?" "I don't know." "You know?" she said. "Don't say I don't know. You know." And Ethan Carter, sitting on a rug in a house he'd waved at for 4 years, said, "Yeah, I know." 9:16. "We can't do it like that," Claire said. "We can't. That was I can't hear yours over mine. I need to be there for yours. That's the whole—" "One at a time." "One at a time." "Okay. Okay." Neither of them moved. "Ethan?" "Yeah." "Who goes first?" And Ethan looked at the two phones lying on the carpet between them, like something you'd call the bomb squad about, and he said, "Me." Claire's breath went out of her. "Why?" "Because mine's 19 seconds, he said. I saw the number on the screen, 19 seconds. His is 4 minutes. He rubbed his mouth with the back of his hand. "So if mine's the thing I think it is, I want it over with before I have to sit through 4 minutes of a better man than me." "Ethan?" "That came out wrong." "That came out exactly right," Claire said, "which is the problem." 9:19. He put the phone on the floor between them and put it on speaker because he could not hold it. His hands had stopped working. He'd carried a 200-pound man down a ladder in 2014 with a broken hand, and he could not hold a phone in a living room. "Ready," Claire said. "No." "Okay," she said, and reached across the rug and took his wrist. The same grip. The exact same one. 14 days later, and the same grip. Ethan pressed play, and Sarah Carter said, "Hey, it's me. You're at a fire." Claire's hand tightened. "Okay, so don't panic. This is a non-panic call." There was a rustle. A chair. A woman's ordinary Thursday. "I have the worst headache of my entire life, and I'm being extremely dramatic about it, and I want you to know in advance that I know I'm being dramatic, so you can't say it first." Ethan made a sound. "Also, I signed Lily up for swimming, and it was $90, and you're going to be so mad at me, and I don't care. She's going to be a swimmer, Ethan. She has the shoulders. She gets those from your side, and that's the only thing she got from your side, so I'm using it." A laugh. Just a small one. Just a woman laughing in her kitchen. "Call me when you're out. I love you. Bye." 9:20. The phone said end of message. Ethan Carter did not move. "Ethan?" Nothing. "Ethan." "That's it," he said. "Ethan?" "That's it." He was staring at the phone. 8 years. 8 years and $40 a year, and that's it. That's a woman talking about swimming lessons. And then he stopped. And Claire watched his whole face go white in about a second and a half. "Ethan, play it again." "What?" "Play it again." She played it again. "I have the worst headache of my entire life." "Stop." Claire stopped it. 9:22. Ethan Carter said in a voice that had no air in it, "Worst headache of my life." "Ethan, say it back to me." "Ethan what?" "Say it back to me, Claire." "Worst headache of your life," Claire said. "What is that?" "It's called a thunderclap headache," Ethan said. "It's the first line. It's page 1. It's the first thing they teach you. They teach you it in the first week. They teach it to you as a phrase, Claire, because that's how people say it. That's exactly how they say it. They say worst headache of my life, and you put them in the truck and you go right, then you don't finish the sentence. Claire's hand was over her mouth. 14 years, Ethan said. 14 years, 2 commendations. I have said the words worst headache of my life to a dispatcher 9 times. His voice was climbing. 9 times, Claire. 9 strangers. 9 people I never met in 9 kitchens, and every single one of them I got in the truck. Ethan, you didn't hear it. I know I didn't hear it. The shout went off in that quiet house like a shotgun. 9:23. Ethan Carter put both hands flat on the floor and breathed. That's it, he said. That's the thing. That's the thing I've been not knowing for 8 years, and it's not helped me. It's worse. It's worse. It's that she told me. She told me in the right words, in the exact right words, the words I've been trained on since I was 22, and I was standing in a duplex on Delmar, putting out a kitchen fire that was already out. Ethan, it was already out. His voice cracked. It was a grease fire in a pan, Claire. A pan. There was a woman standing in the yard in a bathrobe apologizing to me. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was ever going to be hurt. And my phone was in a locker 11 miles away with my wife in it. 9:25. Claire Whitmore did not say it wasn't your fault. She sat on that rug with her hand around his wrist, and she said, "Okay." Ethan's head came up. "Okay." You'd have known, Claire said. He stared at her. If you'd heard it, you'd have known. Her eyes were streaming. That's true? You said 9 times. So yes, you'd have known, and you'd have called somebody, and it might have gone different, and you didn't hear it, and that's real, and that's yours. Ethan made a sound like he'd been kicked. And I'm still sitting here, Claire said. He broke. He went down over his own knees with his fists in the carpet and made a noise Claire had never heard a man make, and she did not touch him because he hadn't asked, and she sat 2 feet away on the floor of a room nobody had ever cried in and let him do it. 9:31. It took a while. At some point, he sat back against the couch and dragged his hands down his face and said, "Sorry." Don't. I've never done that. I know. 8 years. I know. Claire, I want to say something and I need you to just let me get it out. Okay. 9:33. She said she was being dramatic, Ethan said. Claire went very still. Say that again, she said. She said I'm being extremely dramatic about it, and I want you to know in advance that I know I'm being dramatic. He was looking at the ceiling. She said it twice. She said it twice in 19 seconds. And Claire, she wasn't. She was dying. She was standing in our kitchen actively dying, and she used the last minute of her life to apologize for being a bother. Claire's face came apart. So here's the thing I've been sitting on for 11 minutes, Ethan said, and I don't know what to do with it. Sarah didn't know. She was inside it, and she didn't know. And she still the very first thing out of her mouth, the very first instinct was to get ahead of it, to make it small, to say sorry for having a symptom. He turned his head and looked at her. Where'd she learn that? Claire couldn't speak. Same place you did, Ethan said, 9:35. Don't. Claire, don't do that. Don't you dare make that about me. That is your wife. 11 times, Ethan said. You said 11 times. You've got a list. Claire was on her feet. I'm not doing this. Okay. I'm not. I can't, Ethan. I brought you in here to. I know. Then why are you? Because I just found out my wife spent her last hour apologizing, Ethan said quietly from the floor. And there's a woman standing in front of me who's been apologizing for 4 years, and I am not going to sit in this room and let that be a coincidence. Claire Whitmore stood in the middle of her own living room and shook. 9:37. Then she sat back down on the rug. Okay, she said. Okay. Play his. Claire. Play his Ethan right now before I... Your hands are... I know what my hands are doing. 9:38. She picked up the old phone. The screen was cracked in one corner. There was a photo on the lock screen, and Ethan made himself not look at it. 4 minutes, she said. 4 minutes. Ethan, if he's angry, if the last thing he ever said to me is, then I'm still going to be sitting here. Claire looked at him for one long second. She pressed play. And a dead man said, "Hey, Claire Bear, 9:39. Claire folded in half. Okay, so first of all, don't listen to this in the parking garage because I know you and you're in the parking garage. Go sit in the car, sit down. I'll wait. A pause. An actual pause. 4 seconds of a man waiting. Are you sitting good? Claire made a sound like a hinge. So, that was a hell of a fight. Ethan didn't breathe. I want to say something and you're not going to like the order I say it in, so just let me do it my way. I'm not mad. Okay. That's the headline. Put that at the top. I'm not mad at you. Claire, I have never once in 11 years been mad at you. Which honestly is a personal failing on my part. My brother says it's why you're insufferable. Claire laughed. It came out shredded. Second thing, you were right to yell. No, Claire whispered at the phone. No, I wasn't. You were right to yell, Daniel said, because I sprung it on you. I'd known for a month. I've been sitting on it for a month, doing the math by myself, being very brave and very quiet about it. And then I dropped the whole thing on you on a Tuesday at 7 at night after you drove 40 minutes and hadn't eaten. That's not fair. That's a coward's way to do it. And I did it that way because I didn't want to watch you decide anything. I wanted to just announce it. Like it was weather. Claire's head came up. Ethan saw it. He saw the exact word, land. Announce. So you yelled, Daniel said. Good, you should. Somebody should. Everybody in this building talks to me like I'm made of eggshells, and my fiancé came in here and screamed at me for 11 minutes, and Claire, I've got to tell you it was the best 11 minutes of my last 2 months. 9:42. He's not. Claire couldn't get it out. He's not. Shh. Now here's the part I need you to actually hear, so put the phone closer. Claire, 4 years later in her living room, put the phone closer. I said okay because I wanted to. The room stopped. I need you to hear that in my voice, and not from your mother or your father or some doctor with a clipboard. I said okay because I wanted to stay. Not because you made me, not because you're loud, although you are, because I sat there and I looked at you and I thought, oh, she's not done with me, and I'm not done with her. A breath. Claire, I wanted 3 weeks in a yard because I was tired and I was scared, and I thought that was the best deal on the table. And then you screamed at me, and I realized I was quitting on a Tuesday because I was scared, and that's a bad reason to quit anything. Claire Whitmore was on the floor. So don't you dare, Daniel said. Don't you dare take this and turn it into a thing you did to me. That's mine. I chose it. It's the last big thing I get to choose, and I want it back. 9:44. I'm going to be honest with you about the numbers because nobody else will be. It's not good. I know it's not good. You know it's not good. But 11 days, 20 days, whatever it is, I'd rather do it with you yelling at me than do it in a yard being polite. Daniel, Claire said to nobody, to a phone, to a room. Daniel, you idiot. Third thing, she grabbed Ethan's arm. Claire, promise me one thing. And the phone died, 9:45. The screen went black. Claire Whitmore screamed. No! Claire. No, 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 no! She was hitting the power button with her thumb over and over, and nothing was happening, and Ethan had never seen a human being panic like that. It was Ethan. It was 4 minutes. There's a minute left. There's a whole minute. Claire. He was going to ask me for something. Claire, where's the charger? He was going to ask me for something, and I never... Claire. He got her by both shoulders. Where is the charger? The box. It's the prongs bent. It doesn't... Get it. 9:46. The prong was bent. Ethan Carter looked at a charger from 2021 with a bent prong in a house with no other charger that fit and said, okay, it's broken. It's bent. That's the same as... It's not the same as broken. Claire, bent is a thing I can do. He was already up. Do you have pliers? Do I have pliers? Right. Sorry, stupid question. He was at the door. 2 minutes. Ethan? 2 minutes. 9:48. He crossed Merrick Lane at a dead run in the dark, a 35-year-old man sprinting across asphalt in his own street, and he came back in 90 seconds with a toolbox and a hallway light on behind him and an 8-year-old face in a window. 9:50. He sat on Claire's living room floor with a pair of needle-nose pliers and the most important piece of junk in America. If you break it. I'm not gonna break it. Ethan, if you break it, that's the last minute of... Claire. He looked up. Look at my hands. She looked. They were absolutely perfectly steady. That's the one thing, Ethan said. That's the one thing I've got. Everything else about me is a mess. This part works. 9:52. The prong went straight. The phone charged. They sat on the floor and watched a battery icon for 11 minutes without saying one word, and Claire held the neck of her own shirt in her fist the entire time. 10:03. Okay, Ethan said. Ethan, I can't. Claire. I've waited 4 years for a minute of a phone call and I can't press it. Then I'll press it. Claire looked at him. You want me to press it, he said. Yes. 10:04. He pressed it. The message started from the beginning. Claire made a small noise, and he skipped and got it wrong twice, and then at 3 minutes and 11 seconds, third thing. Claire grabbed his hand. Claire, promise me one thing. 10:05. Don't make me a museum. Claire Whitmore stopped breathing. I know you. I know exactly what you're going to do, because I've been lying in this bed for 53 days, watching you organize a wedding you know isn't going to happen. You're going to keep everything. You're going to keep the room. Don't think I don't know about the room. I've seen your closet. You keep the box the shoes came in. Ethan didn't dare look at the wall behind him. So here's what I want. If it goes bad, and it's going to go bad, Claire, you get 1 year. You get 1 whole year to be an absolute disaster. I want you to be a disaster. I want you to be a mess. I want you to be so much of a mess that your mother has to actually feel a feeling in front of company. Claire laughed, and it was almost a scream. And then I want you to take the wall down. 10:06. Because you're going to build one. You're going to build a wall with my face on it, and you're going to stand in front of it every night like it's homework. And, Claire, that's not love, that's a filing system. I'm not in there. I've checked. There's nothing in a photograph. Claire had both hands over her mouth. 1 year. And then you take it down and you put me in a box and you put the box in the closet and you go outside. Daniel, Claire said. Daniel. And the last thing, and then I have to go because Rhonda is giving me a look. A breath, and the voice changed. It went thin and young and scared, and it was the first time in the entire message that Daniel sounded like a man who was dying. If somebody makes you laugh. 10:07. Not somebody good. I don't care about somebody good. Your father will find you 14 somebody's good. I mean, if some idiot makes you laugh. The dumb kind. The kind where it's a bad joke and it's the wrong time, and it's not even funny, and it gets you anyway. Claire was making a sound with no shape to it. Claire, don't you dare apologize to me. Don't you dare stand there and feel bad about it. Don't you dare think about me for 1 second. His voice broke. It actually broke, and Ethan Carter, who had never met this man, closed his eyes. I'm not going to be jealous. I want you to know that. I've thought about it a lot. I've had 53 days, and honestly, the food is terrible, and I've thought about it from every direction. And I promise you, Claire Bear, I promise you on everything, I will not be jealous. A pause. I'll just be relieved. 10:08. Okay. Rhonda's doing the thing with her eyebrow. I love you. Yell at me tomorrow. Bye. End of message. 10:09. Claire Whitmore did not move for 40 seconds. Then she said in a voice like a child's. He said 1 year. Claire. He said 1 year, Ethan. I know. It's been 4. 10:10. She got up. She walked out of that room and down the hall, and Ethan came up off the floor and went after her, and she stopped at the last door on the left with her hand flat against the wood exactly the way she had 14 days ago, and she said, "I can't." "Claire, I can't." She was shaking her head fast over and over. "He said 1 year and it's been 4 and I can't." "Ethan, I can't take it down. I've tried. I tried in year 2. I got a box. I stood right here with a box, and I couldn't take one photograph off that wall." "Then don't." She spun around. "What?" "Don't," Ethan said. "Not tonight. Claire, you've been in there 11 minutes with the man's actual voice for the first time in 4 years. You are not making a decision tonight. He asked you 4 years ago, and he's not here and you are," Ethan said. "And I want you to hear something, because I've got about 90 seconds of clarity left in me tonight, and then I'm going to be useless." She stopped. 10:12. "He said don't make him a museum," Ethan said. "He didn't say do it by Tuesday." Claire's face crumpled. "That's not." "It's exactly that." He put his hand on the doorframe, not the door. "Claire, everybody in your life has given you a schedule. Your mother's got a schedule. Your father's got a schedule. And now the one person you'd actually take it from is dead. And he's got a schedule too. And you know what? He was wrong. He was 31, and he was scared, and he was guessing. He was guessing Claire. He didn't know how long it was going to hurt. Nobody does. He loved you, and he took a shot at a number." Claire Whitmore stood in her hallway and sobbed. 1 year, Ethan said. 1 year was him being hopeful. That's all that is. That's a man in a hospital bed being hopeful about how much you'd miss him. And Claire said, "Oh, just that. Oh." 10:14. She slid down the wall and sat on the hallway floor under 6 empty frames and cried like a person, and Ethan sat down across from her, and neither of them said anything for a very long time. At 10:41 she said, "Ethan." "Yeah." She said, "Swimming lessons." Ethan let out a breath he'd been holding for 8 years. "Yeah," he said. "She did. $90. $90. Is she a swimmer?" Ethan Carter put his face in his hands and laughed until it turned into something else. "No," he said. "No, I never signed her up. It came in the mail. The confirmation thing came in the mail about a week after, and I threw it in a drawer, and I never—" He stopped. "Claire, she's 8.5 years old, and she's never had a swimming lesson because I couldn't open a drawer." 10:43. "Sign her up," Claire said. "Claire?" "Sign her up, Ethan." "It's not that. It's exactly that simple," she said. "And if you tell me it isn't, I'm going to throw something at you because I have spent 4 years telling people it isn't that simple, and I'm tired. I'm so tired of the sound of my own voice saying it isn't that simple." Ethan looked at her. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Yeah, okay." He wiped his face. $90 is going to be like 400 now. "Ethan." "I'm just saying inflation." "Ethan." "I'll sign her up," he said. "God, fine." And Claire Whitmore laughed on the floor of her hallway at 11 at night with her whole face destroyed. 10:46. He signed her up on Monday. It was $420, which he mentioned to Claire 11 separate times over the following week, and she told him to shut up every single time, and by Wednesday it had become the closest thing either of them had to a joke. Lily lost her mind. Swimming. Yeah. Like in a pool. Generally, yeah. With other kids. That's the whole idea, Bug. And Lily Carter looked at her father with an expression he had not seen on her in 8 years and said, "Why?" Ethan crouched down. "Because your mom signed you up," he said. Lily's face changed. "What?" "She signed you up, before. She thought you had the shoulders for it." His throat closed. "So it's an old thing. It's not a new thing. It's just late." And Lily Carter, who did not remember her mother, who remembered a couch and somebody singing, said very quietly, She thought about my shoulders. 10:50. Different day. Doesn't matter. Ethan went out to the truck and sat in it for 15 minutes. Then things got good. That was the strange part. That was the part Ethan would think about later with something like disbelief, that for 19 days, everything got good. Claire started coming to the swim lessons. She said it was because the pool was near her fabric supplier, which was a lie so bad that even Lily called it. She sat on a bleacher in a $200 coat, in a room that smelled like chlorine, and screamed like a lunatic every time an 8-year-old touched a wall. Ethan finished her deck, then her bathroom. Then he started on the kitchen, and she told him he was insane. And he told her the cabinets were hung crooked, and she said they are not. And he put a level on them, and they were. And she stood in her own kitchen and said, "That's not possible. I specified those." And he said, "Somebody lied to you." And Claire said, "Everybody lies to me." And they both stopped laughing at the same second. Richard called her. Twice. She answered once. And on a Tuesday, 26 days after a joke on a porch step, Claire Whitmore stood in her kitchen and said, "Ethan." "Yeah." "I'm going to take the wall down." He put the level down. "Yeah." "Not tonight." She had her arms wrapped around herself. "But I'm going to. And I want God, I want you to be in the house. Not in the room. In the house. Somewhere. Because I can't be in this house alone when it's coming down." And Ethan Carter said, "Name the day." "Thursday." He stopped. "Claire." "I know." "Claire, Thursdays." "I know what Thursday is," she said. That's why. Which was, Ethan thought later, the moment. That was the moment where it all could have gone the other way. Because on Wednesday, Lily Carter came home with a piece of paper. "Dad?" "Hey, Bug. There's a thing." "What thing?" She handed it over. It was a flyer. It was purple. It said, "Family Swim Showcase" across the top in a font that had never once been used by an adult. "It's on Thursday," Lily said. Ethan read it twice. "Bug, you don't have to come." Fast. Way too fast. Rehearsed. "It's not a real thing. It's like everybody just swims one lap, and then there's juice. It's stupid." Lily. "It's fine, Dad." "Lily, look at me." He crouched down. "Do you want me there?" And his daughter said, "Yes." And then immediately, "But also Miss Whitmore." Ethan's stomach dropped 4 inches. "Lil, she said she'd come to a meet," Lily said. She said, "When you have a real one, I'm coming, and this is a real one. It's got a flyer, Dad. It has a flyer with my name on the back." She turned it over. There were 40 names on the back in 6-point type. Lily Carter. She'd circled it. Ethan Carter looked at a purple flyer with his daughter's name circled in pencil and understood with total clarity exactly what was about to happen. "Bug," he said. "Thursday's a hard day for Miss Whitmore." "Why, it just is." "That's a dumb answer." "Yeah," Ethan said. "It is." He called Claire that night. "Ethan." "Hey." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's—" "Ethan, it's 10:15, and you've never called me on the phone in your life. You live 60 feet away. What's wrong?" "Thursday," he said. Silence. "There's a swim thing," Ethan said. "It's a nothing. It's 20 minutes in a juice box. It's at 4:30. It's 40 minutes before anything. And Claire, I'm not asking. I want to be really clear that I'm not asking. I'm telling you it exists, and that's it. That's the whole call. You do Thursday your way. We'll do the wall after. Friday, Saturday, whenever." There was a very long pause. "She circled her name, didn't she?" Claire said. Ethan closed his eyes. "Yeah." "On the flyer?" "Yeah." "In pencil?" "Claire." "I'll be there," Claire said. "Claire, listen to me." "Ethan, I'll be there." 4:14. Thursday. She wasn't there. 4:22. Ethan sat on a bleacher in a room full of parents with a phone in his hand and a seat next to him that had a code on it, because Lily had made him put a code on it, because Lily had said, "Save it, Dad, save it," so she knows it's for her. 4:26. He texted, "Hey, no pressure at all. You good?" Nothing. 4:31. They started. 4:34. Lily Carter came out onto the deck in a swim cap that made her head look like a thumb, and she scanned the bleachers, and Ethan watched his daughter's eyes go across every single row. Twice. Then she found him, and she looked at the coat on the empty seat, and she smiled at him and gave him a thumbs up, and Ethan Carter felt something in his chest tear straight down the middle, because he had never in his life seen a better performance from anybody. 4:41. She swam her lap. She was terrible. She was so slow that a woman 2 rows down said "aw" out loud. She touched the wall and hauled herself out and stood there dripping in a room full of other people's families, and Ethan screamed her name until his voice cracked, and it wasn't enough, and both of them knew it wasn't enough. 4:52. Juice. 5:09. In the truck, Lily said, "It's okay." "Lil." "Dad, it's okay." "It's not okay. She's probably busy." And Ethan Carter, gripping a steering wheel in a parking lot, said, "Yeah, she's probably busy." 5:40. He pulled onto Merrick Lane. The Lexus was in the driveway. It had never left. 6:02. Lily went inside without being told. That was the thing that did it. That was the thing that broke him in half, that his daughter took one look at the silver car in the driveway across the street and got out of the truck and went inside their house and shut the door without a word, without a question, without anything, because she had already done the math and she was 8 years old, and she had done the math faster than he had. 6:04. Ethan crossed the street. Claire opened the door before he knocked. She'd been at the window. She was always at the window. She was gray. She looked like she'd been hit by a car. "Ethan, were you here the whole time?" "Ethan, I have to tell you." "Were you here the whole time, Claire?" "Yes." 6:05. "Okay," he said. "Ethan, I got in the car." "Okay. I got in the car at 4 o'clock. Her voice was in pieces. "I got in the car, and I put the key in, and I sat in my driveway for 35 minutes, and I couldn't. My hands wouldn't. I could not make my hands turn the key, and I sat in that car and watched you back out, and I sat there." "Okay." "Don't say okay." "What do you want me to say?" "Say something real." 6:06. And Ethan Carter said, "She saved you a seat." Claire made a sound. "She made me put my coat on it," he said. "So you'd know it was yours. And she looked at that seat about 40 times, Claire. I counted. And then she gave me a thumbs up." His voice was shaking now. "She gave me a thumbs up because she's 8, and she's already learned how to manage me about it. She's already there. She's already the person who makes it easy for everybody else." "Ethan, that's my wife," he said. "That's my wife on the phone saying she's being dramatic. That's you on a porch saying you're fine. That's my 8-year-old daughter on a pool deck doing a thumbs up." His eyes were streaming, and he didn't wipe them. "It's the same disease, Claire. It's the same exact disease, and I have been standing right next to it for 8 years, and I let her catch it." 6:08. Claire Whitmore was crying so hard she couldn't stand. "I'll go to her," she said. "Right now I'll go. I'll walk over there and I'll—" "No. Ethan, no." And that word came out of him with 14 years of a fire ground in it, and Claire stopped like she'd hit glass. "You don't get to fix it in 11 minutes because you feel bad. That's Claire, that's what everybody's always done to you." She stopped breathing. 6:09. "I'm not angry," Ethan said. And it was true, and it was so much worse than angry. "Claire, look at me. I'm not angry at you. You couldn't turn a key. I get it. I get it. I've got a voicemail I couldn't play for 8 years. I am the last man in America who gets to judge you for a key. Then don't do this. I have to do this. Why? Because I can afford it and she can't. Claire Whitmore put her hand on the doorframe. I've got one job, Ethan said. One. I've had one job for 8 years, and it's not the gutters, and it's not the deck. It's that kid, and I let her sit on a bleacher and circle her name on a flyer for a woman who's 4 years into an 8-year climb. And Claire, that's on me. That's not on you. You never promised her anything. You said one sentence in a kitchen about a meat, and she built a church out of it because she's starving, because her father's been starving in front of her since she was 3 months old, and she's been studying me. Ethan, please. 6:11. You deserve somebody who can give you everything, Ethan said. That's the line, right? That's the thing the guy says. Except that's not it. That's not it at all. He shook his head. Claire, I don't care about your money. I never cared about your money. I turned down 200 grand in a driveway with a 19-year-old furnace. I don't care. Then what? And Ethan Carter said, I've got one whole thing left in me. One. And it's not enough for both of you. Claire's face. He would see it for the rest of his life. I can't be the guy standing between you and that room, he said, and the guy standing in front of my kid at the same time. I'm not big enough. I thought I was. I'm not. He backed off the porch. Take the wall down, Claire. Take it down. Do it for you, not for me, not for a voicemail, and I'll be across the street and I'll wave at you every single morning for 30 years, and I mean that as the nicest thing I've ever said to anybody. 6:12. Ethan. Claire's voice was nothing. Ethan, don't. Ethan, please. You're the only person who ever... I know. You're the only person who ever... I know, Claire. And he walked across Merrick Lane. And he went inside his house. And Claire Whitmore stood in her doorway in the last of the light, in a street where every curtain was moving, and understood that she had just watched the only man who had ever stayed in the room walk out of it, and that he was right, and that he was completely catastrophically right, and that being right about it was going to kill her. 6:14. Then she turned around and looked down the hall, at the door at the end. 6:19. She walked down the hall. She got to the door and put her hand flat on the wood exactly the way she had 100 times, exactly the way she had 2 weeks ago, with a man's wrist in her other hand, and she stood there and waited for the thing that always came. It came. The cold. The nausea. The absolute physical refusal, the body's veto 4 years of a hand that would not turn a knob. And Claire Whitmore said out loud to an empty house, No. 6:20. She went in. She turned on the light, which she had never done not once in 4 years. She'd always used the hall light. She'd stood in the doorway and let the hall do the work, because if you never turn the light on, you never have to see all of it at the same time. She turned it on, and it was so much worse than she remembered. 6:22. 311 photographs. She knew the number. She'd counted them in year 2 in a bad week at 3 in the morning. 311, and a corkboard of paperwork and a chart in green marker, and a dress in a bag with the tags still on, and 2 rings in a box that had never touched anybody's hand. Claire stood in the middle of it and looked around at 4 years of her own life and heard a dead man say, That's not love, that's a filing system. You jerk, she said. 6:24. She got a box. It was a moving box from the garage, the same one she'd gotten in year 2, the one she'd carried in here and carried back out again with nothing in it. It still had the crease in the flap where she'd gripped it. She set it on the floor. She looked at the wall. She reached up. Her fingers got within 2 inches of the paper crown photograph, and her whole arm locked. 6:25. Come on. Nothing. Come on. Her voice was climbing. Come on, it's a photograph, Claire. It's a piece of paper. Her hand was shaking so hard she could hear her own wedding ring ticking against nothing. And she thought, he's going to be gone. That was the thing. That was the whole thing, the thing under everything, the thing she'd never said to a single human being, including herself. If the wall came down, he was gone. Not dead. Dead was already true. Gone. Not a room. Not a place you could stand in. Not a thing anybody could walk into and be shown. If the wall came down, Daniel would be nowhere. 6:26. Claire Whitmore sat down on the floor of that room for the first time in 4 years and said, "I can't do it alone." And there was nobody there. 6:28. She got up. She went to the front door. She got as far as the porch, and she could see the light in Ethan Carter's kitchen, 60 feet away. And she stood there in her own doorway, with her hand on the frame. And she thought about a man saying, "I've got one whole thing left in me, and it's not enough for both of you." And she thought about an 8-year-old doing a thumbs up at an empty seat with a coat on it. And Claire Whitmore did the hardest thing she had ever done in her entire life. She went back inside. 6:29. She did not cross that street. She sat down on her own hall floor under 6 empty frames, and she called her mother. 6:31. "Claire. Mom." There was a pause on the other end so long Claire thought the call had dropped. Nobody had called Vivian Whitmore Mom since 2003. "Claire, what's happened?" "Nothing's happened." "Claire." "Mom, I need you to come here," Claire said, "and I need you to not say one single word." 6:32. "I beg your pardon." "That's the deal." Claire's voice cracked wide open. "That's the whole deal, and it's the only deal, and I need you to say yes or no, right now, because I have about 11 minutes of this in me. Come to my house. Don't talk. Don't fix it. Don't ask what happened. Don't say his name. Don't say sweetheart. Just Mom. Please, just come and stand in my house and not say anything." Silence. "I'm 40 minutes out," Vivian said. "Mom." "I'm 40 minutes out, Claire. I'm getting my keys." And she hung up. 7:11. The Mercedes came down Merrick Lane doing 50 in a 25 and stopped at an angle that would have gotten anybody else a ticket. And Vivian Whitmore got out of it in a sweatshirt. An actual sweatshirt. Claire had never seen it. She had in 33 years never once seen her mother in anything with elastic in it. Vivian came up the walk. She got to the porch. She opened her mouth. And Claire said, "Don't." Vivian's mouth closed, 7:12. And Vivian Whitmore, 61 years old, who had never in her life taken an instruction from her daughter, walked into that house and did not say one word. Claire led her down the hall, past the frames, to the door. "Mom," Claire said, "I'm going to show you something, and you're going to want to say something, and if you say it, I will never speak to you again, and I mean that I'm not being dramatic. I mean it literally. I will sell this house." Vivian nodded. Once. 7:14. Claire opened the door, and Vivian Whitmore looked into that room and looked at 311 photographs of a man she had once tried to buy, and her face did something Claire had never seen it do. It fell. The whole thing. Everything. 61 years of a beautiful smile that never got anywhere near her eyes, and it all came off her face at once. And standing there in a sweatshirt in her daughter's hallway, Vivian Whitmore put her hand over her mouth. She didn't say anything. She kept the deal. 7:15. She stood there for a full minute with her hand over her mouth and tears coming down her face, and she didn't make a sound, and Claire watched her mother look at 4 years. Then Vivian took her hand away from her mouth and looked at her daughter and said with her eyes plainly, "May I speak?" And Claire said, "One sentence." Vivian said, "I didn't know it was a room." 7:16. Claire's knees went. Vivian caught her. That was the thing that undid it. That was the thing that 4 years of restaurants and Grants and Prestons and Sweetheart. It's been 4 years, had never once done, because Vivian Whitmore caught her daughter in a hallway, badly awkwardly. Both of them going down half a foot before she got her feet under her, and she held on, and Claire Whitmore screamed into her mother's shoulder like she was 9 years old. 7:22. They sat on the floor. Vivian's coat was ruined. She didn't appear to notice. "Mom, I have to take it down." Vivian said nothing. "I have to take it down and I can't. I've tried. I tried for 4 years and my arm won't work, and Daniel said he said—" She stopped. "I have a voicemail." Vivian's head turned. "From him?" Claire said. "From the last from day 53. 4 minutes. I never played it. I played it 2 weeks ago on the living room floor with a man I've waved at for 4 years, and Mom, he told me. He told me to take it down. He asked me to. He said 1 year. It's been 4. Vivian Whitmore looked at the floor for a long moment. Then she said, "Second sentence." Claire laughed. It came out shredded. "Yeah," she said. "Okay. Do you want me to take it down for you?" 7:25. Claire stared at her. "What? Do you want me to take it down?" Vivian's voice was perfectly steady. "I'll do it. I'll do it right now, and you can sit in the kitchen, and I won't let you see, and every single one of them will go in that box in order, and I will not lose one, not one, and you'll never have to touch it." And Claire said, "No." Vivian nodded. "Mom, that's... Do you understand what you just—" Claire's face was wrecked. "That's the first time in my entire life you've ever offered to do something my way." "Yes," Vivian said. "I'm aware. I've been driving around this block for 2 weeks working up to it." 7:26. "You've what?" "Thursday. Every Thursday." Vivian's chin came up and her eyes were streaming, and she said it like a woman reading her own indictment. "I know what Thursday is, Claire. I've known for 4 years. I drive down this street every single Thursday between 6 and 8, and I have never once stopped, because I don't know what to say when I get here, and I am very bad at doing things I'm not good at." Claire Whitmore could not breathe. "You," she said. "You've been—" 208 Thursdays, Vivian said. "Give or take. I miss the ones where there's weather." 7:28. "Mom, don't." "Mom, you drive here." "Claire, don't, please. I've got about 4 minutes of this in me too." Vivian pressed her fingers to her eyes, and it was the exact gesture, the exact one Claire had made on a porch step 2 weeks ago, and both of them saw it, and neither said it. "I am not a good mother. I know that. Your father says I bill help. He's right. He's right, and I've heard him say it for 30 years, and I don't know how to be a person who just sits somewhere." "Then sit," Claire said. Vivian looked up. "Sit here," Claire said. "That's the job. That's the whole job, Mom. That's what he did. That's what he did the very first night he sat on a step, and he didn't fix anything. He made a stupid joke, and he sat there." 7:30. "The contractor," Vivian said. "Ethan?" "Ethan." Vivian was quiet a second. "Your father told me what happened in the driveway." "He did. He came home and he sat in the car in the garage for 25 minutes, Vivian said. "Then he came in and he told me that he offered a man $200,000, and the man said no because you were sitting on the step watching." Claire made a sound. "And then Richard Whitmore," Vivian said, "for the first time in 40 years of marriage, cried in my kitchen." 7:32. "What?" "Dad doesn't—" "I'm aware of what your father doesn't do, Claire. I've been married to it since 1986. "What did he say?" And Vivian said, "He said I've been doing it wrong since she was 19. Claire put both hands over her face. 7:34. "Where is he?" Vivian said. "Who?" "The contractor. Ethan. Where is he, Claire? Because I drove past a house with a light on 60 feet from here, and I'd like to know why you're on the floor with me, of all the available humans." "He left." "He left? He walked out an hour ago." Claire's voice went dead. "He said he's got one thing left in him, and it's not enough for both of us. And Mom, he's right. He's completely right. There's a little girl over there who circled her name on a flyer, and I couldn't turn a key." Claire. "I couldn't turn a key, Mom. It's a car. It's a car. And a pool. And I sat in that driveway for 35 minutes and watched them leave." 7:36. And Vivian Whitmore said, "So he's right." Claire's head came up like she'd been slapped. He's right, Vivian repeated. You couldn't go. You're not able. You've got a room in your house you can't stand up in, and you're asking an 8-year-old to wait for you. Her voice was gentle and merciless, and it was the first honest thing she'd said to her daughter in a decade. So he's right, Claire. He's completely right. Yes. Good, Vivian said. Now what? 7:37. What? Now what, Claire? Vivian's eyes were hard and wet. He's right. Fine. He's right. Everyone's right. I've been right for 4 years, and look at us, we're on a floor. Being right is the cheapest thing in this family. We've got warehouses of it. She leaned in. So he's right. And now what are you going to do? And Claire Whitmore said, I don't know. That's a dumb answer, Vivian said. Claire started laughing. She couldn't stop. It came out of her in waves, ugly and helpless, and she said, Oh my God, you sound like his kid. And Vivian said, I beg your pardon. And Claire said, Nothing. Mom, nothing. That's you have no idea what you just did. 7:40. Then Claire stopped laughing. She stood up. Mom. Yes. I'm going to take it down. Tonight. Right now. Claire. And you're going to stand in the hall, Claire said. And you're not going to help. And you're not going to talk. And you're not going to leave. That's it. Those are the 3 rules. Can you do that? Vivian Whitmore stood up in her sweatshirt. No, she said. Claire's face fell. But I'm going to do it anyway, Vivian said. 7:42. It took 4 hours. Claire took the first photograph off the wall at 7:43, and it was the paper crown one, and she held it in both hands for a full 90 seconds before she could put it in the box, and she made a sound doing it that Vivian Whitmore would hear in her sleep for the rest of her life. Then she took the second one. The second one took 11 seconds. The third one took 4. 8:50. Mom? Yes. You're allowed to sit down. I'm aware. You've been standing for an hour. Yes, Vivian said. I have, and did not sit down. 10:04. The chart came down. The green marker won, the one that climbed and then went off a cliff. Claire held it and said, He did this in a hospital bed, with a ruler. He asked a nurse for a ruler, Mom. Vivian said nothing. She kept the deal. 10:55. The corkboard, the discharge forms, the appointment cards, the wristband. The wristband was the worst one. Claire held a plastic hospital wristband with a dead man's birthday on it and stood in the middle of an empty room and shook. Vivian took one step forward. Don't, Claire said. Vivian stepped back, and Claire Whitmore put it in the box herself. 11:41. The last thing on the wall was a strip of tape. Just tape. Everything else was gone. 311 photographs, and there was one piece of masking tape at eye level with nothing under it, and Claire looked at it and said, That one held the sign. The sign, Day 53, Claire said. The last one he made. I brought it home. It's in the box in the closet. I put it on the wall for about a month, and then I couldn't, so I took it down and I never took the tape off. She reached up. She peeled the tape. 11:43. And Claire Whitmore stood in a bedroom with 4 bare walls for the first time in 4 years, and did not fall down. That was the thing. That was the thing she'd been afraid of, the actual specific fear that the moment it was bare, she'd stop existing, that the room was a load-bearing wall, that if it came down, the whole house went with it. She stood there. The house stayed up. 11:44. Mom. Yes. He's not gone. Vivian said nothing. He's not gone, Claire said, and turned around, and her whole face was open. I thought I have spent 4 years thinking that wall was him, and it's not. It's tape. It's tape and paper. He's Mom. He's still, I can still hear him. I can hear him right now. He's saying, told you. He's saying it in that stupid voice he did. And Vivian Whitmore broke her own rule. May I say something? She said. Yes. I liked him. Claire stopped. I liked him enormously, Vivian said. I want that on the record because I've never said it, and your father tried to buy him off. And I knew about it, Claire. I knew about it that night in 2019. And I said nothing, and I have carried that for 7 years. Her voice finally went. He called me. 2 weeks after. He called me, and he said, Mrs. Whitmore, I'm not going to tell Claire you knew, because it's not mine to tell, but I'd like you to know that I know. And then he asked me how my knee was. Claire sat down on the bare floor. He asked about my knee, Vivian said. I'd had a replacement in the spring. He asked about my knee, Claire, and I had just helped my husband try to buy him out of your life. 11:47. Mom. I'm fine. Mom. I'm fine, And Vivian Whitmore in a sweatshirt sat down on the floor of an empty bedroom next to her daughter and said, I'm not fine. And Claire said, I know. I don't know how to do this. I know. Claire, I don't know how to sit somewhere. You've been standing for 4 hours, Claire said. You did it. Mom, you did it. That was the whole thing. You just did it. 11:52. They sat on that floor until midnight. At 12:06, Vivian said, Now the other thing. What other thing? Claire. Mom, it's midnight. I'm aware of the time, Vivian said. I'm asking what you're going to do about the man across the street. And Claire said nothing. 12:07. Nothing. Not yet. Claire pulled her knees up. Mom, if I go over there tonight, I'm going over there to make myself feel better. That's it. That's the whole reason. I'd be going over there so I could stop feeling like this. And Mom, that's what everybody's done to me for 4 years. She wiped her face. Somebody feels bad, so they show up with a casserole, and the casserole is for them. Vivian Whitmore was very quiet. Yes, she said. I've made a great many casseroles. Mom? No. You're right. Vivian stood up badly using the wall. You're right. Don't go tonight. Then and Vivian said, when you can turn the key. 12:09, 11 days. That's what it took. Claire would think about that number later and want to scream because it was the same number. It was the exact same number, 11 days, and she would never once be able to decide if that meant anything or if the universe was just out of ideas. 11 days, and she didn't cross the street. Not once. She waved. That was all. Every morning at 7:40, Ethan Carter came out with a lunch cooler, and Claire Whitmore raised her hand from her own porch, and he raised his, and that was it. And it was the worst 11 days of her life, including the ones in a hospital. Day 3, she called Priya, the woman she'd said no to 2 years ago on a Thursday about a drink. Priya cried on the phone. 2 years, Priya said. Claire, I thought you hated me. Day 5, she drove to the pool. She didn't go in. She sat in the parking lot for 40 minutes and then drove home. And that night, she sat on her floor and said out loud to nobody, "That's better than yesterday." And it was the first kind thing she had said about herself since 2022. Day 7, she went in. There was no meet. It was just a Tuesday. She sat on a bleacher in an empty balcony and watched 40 kids thrash around and picked out the slowest one in the pool. And it was Lily Carter. It was absolutely Lily Carter. And Claire Whitmore sat in a room that smelled like chlorine and put her hand over her mouth and laughed until she cried. She left before it ended. Day 9, she called her father. Claire, Dad, is everything? Dad, I want to ask you a question, and I want a real answer. Richard Whitmore's voice, 300 miles of phone line away, went very careful. All right. What did he say? Claire said. When you offered him the money, you told me he laughed. What did he say? Dad, the whole thing, I want the whole thing. Silence. Claire, you've been carrying it 7 years, Claire said. I've got a room in my house I just took apart with my mother. It's my turn to carry something. What did he say? 12 seconds of silence. Then Richard Whitmore said, He said, Mr. Whitmore, I'd do the exact same thing if she were mine. Claire sat down. He said I'd do it worse, Richard said. He said I'd have offered more. And then he said, "So we're the same, sir, we just disagree about the number." "Dad?" "And I laughed," Richard said. "Claire, I laughed, out loud, in a bar, at a man I was trying to run out of your life." His voice went. "And I drove home, and I told your mother I'd made a mistake, and I have not said a true thing out loud from that day until 3 weeks ago in a driveway." 12 seconds. "Dad?" "Yes." "Come to dinner." "What?" "Come to dinner," Claire said. "Both of you, Saturday, my house. It's a disaster, the kitchen's half apart, because a contractor told me my cabinets are crooked and then abandoned the job." Claire. "And Dad," she said, "I'm cooking, so bring something, because I can't cook." Day 11, 6:04 in the evening, exactly the time. She noticed it on the microwave as she walked past, and she almost lost her nerve right there. She got her keys. She got in the car. 6:05, and Claire Whitmore turned the key. 6:06. She didn't drive to his house. It was 60 feet away. It would have been insane. She drove around the block once at 15 miles an hour, crying so hard she had to pull over on Delmar, which she didn't notice until later, and then had to sit down about. 6:22. She pulled back into her own driveway. She got out, and she walked across Merrick Lane. 6:23. Ethan opened the door before she knocked. He'd been at the window. He was gray. He'd lost weight. He looked like a man who had spent 11 days doing exactly one thing and doing it badly. "Claire." "I need to talk to your daughter," Claire said. 6:24. Ethan's whole body went rigid. "Claire, I'm not asking you," she said. "Ethan, I'm sorry, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you. I'm not here for you. I'm going to be in a minute, and God help you when I get there. But right now, I need 11 minutes with an 8-year-old, and I need you to go stand in the kitchen." "That's not—" "You said she can't afford it." Claire's voice was absolutely level. "You were right. So I'm going to go pay her." 6:25. Ethan Carter stood in his own doorway and looked at a woman he'd waved at for 4 years and 11 days, and something in his face broke open. "She's in the living room," he said. 6:26. Lily Carter was on the couch with a book she wasn't reading. She looked up, and her whole face did the thing, the terrible thing, the thing Ethan had been watching for 8 years without knowing what it was. It got ready. It got ready to be fine. It got ready to make it easy for whoever had just walked in. Claire saw it happen. "Hi, Miss Whitmore," Lily said, bright as a nickel. 6:27. Claire Whitmore got down on the floor, not crouched, sat, on the carpet in front of the couch, so she was looking up at an 8-year-old. "Lily," she said, "I'm going to say some things, and they're all true, and none of them are your job." Lily went still. "I said I'd come to your meet. I didn't come. I was 60 feet away. I was in my car in my driveway the whole time." Claire's voice didn't shake. She'd practiced it 11 days. "I wasn't busy. I want you to know that because I know your dad said I was probably busy, and I know you knew that was a lie because you're smart, and you've been doing math about grown-ups since you were 3. Lily's book slid off her lap. "I wasn't busy," Claire said. "I was scared and I couldn't turn my car key, and that's the whole reason, and it's a stupid reason, and it's the real one." 6:29. Lily said in a very small voice, "It's okay." And Claire said, "No." Lily blinked. "No, it's not okay," Claire said. "Lily, look at me. It's not okay. You saved me a seat. You made your dad put his coat on it, and I want you to be mad at me." "I'm not mad." "Yes, you are." "I'm not." "Lily Carter," Claire said, "you are 8 years old, and you are the most polite closed door I have ever met in my life, and I know that because I'm one too, and I'm 33, and I have a house with nobody in it, and I am not going to let you become me." 6:30. Lily Carter's face came apart. "You said you'd come," she said. "I know." You said when it's a real one I'm coming, you said it in the kitchen. I know. It had a flyer, Lily screamed. It had a flyer. I circled my name. I circled it in pencil so it wouldn't look like I cared. And Claire Whitmore said, "Oh, honey." 6:31. Lily Carter came off that couch and hit her like a truck. Claire caught her. Barely. Went back on her hands and got an arm around a sobbing 8-year-old. And in the kitchen doorway, Ethan Carter put his hand on the frame and did not come in. I looked 40 times, Lily howled. I know. I'm not supposed to look 40 times. That's pathetic. It's not pathetic. It is. Lily. Claire pulled her back and held her by the shoulders and looked her dead in the eye. Listen to me. Wanting somebody to come is not pathetic. Looking 40 times is not pathetic. You are allowed to want things out loud. 6:33. Lily stopped. Her mouth was open. Her face was a disaster. Say it, Claire said. What? Say the thing you want, out loud. Right now to me, no thumbs up, no it's okay, no making it easy for me. Claire's hands were shaking. Say it, Lily. What do you want? And Lily Carter said, I want you to come to the next one. 6:34. Yes, Claire said. That's it. Yes. That's it. Yes. You're not gonna say we'll see. No. Grown-ups always say we'll see. I'm saying yes, Claire said. And Lily, listen, this is important. If I don't come, you are allowed to be furious with me. You're allowed to yell at me. You are allowed to yell at me in a parking lot in front of people. Her voice cracked wide open. Because that's what people who love each other do. They yell. Somebody I loved very much told me that once, and it took me 4 years to hear it. 6:35. Lily said, Who? And Claire said, his name was Daniel. Is he dead? Yes. Oh, Lily said. And then, my mom's dead too. I know. I don't remember her. Fast. Rehearsed. And that's bad, and I'm not supposed to say it. Lily, Claire said. That's not bad. That's just true. Those are different. And Lily Carter looked at her for about 4 seconds. Then she said, Dad's been crying in the truck. 6:36. From the kitchen doorway. Lily. He goes out there, and he sits in it, and he thinks I don't... Lily Carter. It's true, Dad, she yelled. You said true things are allowed. And there was a silence in that house that went on for about 6 seconds. Then Ethan Carter said, Yeah, I did. 6:37. Claire stood up. She turned around. And Ethan was in the kitchen doorway with his hand on the frame and 11 days on his face. Hi, she said. Hi. I took the wall down. Ethan closed his eyes. 11 days ago, Claire said. The night you left. It took 4 hours. My mother stood in the hall the entire time and didn't say a word. And Ethan, she's been driving down this street every Thursday for 4 years. What? 208 Thursdays. Claire's voice broke. She never stopped. Not once. She didn't know what to say. 6:38. Ethan Carter put his hand over his mouth. Claire, I'm not done. She was crying now and she didn't wipe it. I called Priya. I called my father and I made him tell me what Daniel said in that bar. And Ethan, he said, we're the same, sir. We just disagree about the number. He said it to a man who was trying to buy him. That's a hell of a man. He was an idiot, Claire said, and I loved him. And he's in a box in my closet. And Ethan, he's in a box in my closet. And the house didn't fall down. 6:39. And I drove to the pool on day 5 and sat in the parking lot and left. And on day 7 I went in and I watched your daughter come in, dead last in a practice. And I laughed so hard I had to leave. And I've been carrying that for 4 days, like it's treasure. Claire. And 11 days ago you stood on my porch, she said. And you told me you've got one whole thing left in you and it's not enough for both of us. Ethan didn't move. You were right, Claire said. 6:40. So I'm not asking you for it. Ethan's head came up. That's the whole point, Claire said. Ethan, that's why I couldn't come over here for 11 days, and it killed me. It killed me. I stood on my porch every single night at 9 o'clock looking at your kitchen light, but I couldn't come until it was true. Her hands were fists. I'm not here for your one thing. I've got one now, mine. I built it. It took 11 days and 4 hours and a sweatshirt, and I built it myself, and it's mine. Claire, I don't need you to carry me, she said. I need you to stop carrying everybody and sit down. 6:41. Ethan Carter said, I don't know how. I know you don't, Claire said. That's why I'm here. That's the whole Ethan. That's the whole thing. You've been standing in a doorway for 8 years, making sure everybody else got out of the building. He made a sound. So get out of the building, Claire said. 6:42. And Ethan Carter, 35 years old, widower contractor, father of one, walked across his own living room and sat down on the floor. Just sat. Right there on the carpet with his back against the couch like his legs had stopped again. Claire sat down across from him. 2 feet of space. Same as a porch step. Same as always. Hi, she said. Hi. You look terrible. Yeah, well. He laughed wet. You should see the other guy. There isn't another guy. No, Ethan said. There isn't. 6:44. Ethan. Yeah. I'm going to say something and you're going to want to be noble about it, and I need you to not. Claire took a breath. I'm not asking you to be enough for both of us. I'm asking you to be 1/3 of 3 people who are all extremely bad at this. Ethan stared at her. That's the offer, Claire said. That's the whole offer. It's a bad offer. There's a woman in it who can't turn a key, and a man in it who can't open a drawer, and an 8-year-old who circles her name in pencil, and Ethan, not one of us is enough on our own, and I have done the math about 400 times in 11 days, and I think that might be fine. 6:45. Ethan Carter said, Claire. Yeah, that's the first offer anybody's made me in 8 years that didn't come with a casserole. And Claire Whitmore laughed so hard she had to put her head down on her knees. 6:46. Dad? They both looked up. Lily Carter was standing there with her arms crossed exactly like her father, and she said, Is she staying for dinner? Ethan opened his mouth. Because if she is, Lily said, we have to go to the store because we have nothing. We have ketchup and a pickle. We have more than a pickle. Dad, we have a pickle. There's a whole rotisserie. That was Tuesday. Dad 6:47, and Claire Whitmore, sitting on a carpet in a house she'd waved at for 4 years, said, I'm staying for dinner. Lily Carter's whole face lit up like a switch. Then we have to go to the store, she said. Right now, get up, and grabbed Claire's hand and hauled, and Claire came up off that floor laughing, and Ethan Carter sat on the carpet and watched his daughter drag a woman toward the front door by the wrist. The exact same grip. Ethan started laughing and couldn't stop. What? Claire said. Nothing. Ethan, what? Nothing. He said. Nothing. Go. I'm coming. They didn't rush it after that. That's the part nobody believes when they hear the story, because people want the next thing to be a wedding, and it wasn't. It was 14 months of ordinary. Claire came to the swim meets. All of them. She was by universal agreement of Merrick Lane the loudest human being ever admitted to a municipal pool. In November, Lily came in 4th out of 30, and Claire Whitmore stood on a bleacher and screamed so loud a lifeguard spoke to her. Ethan finished the kitchen. Then he did his own, which took 11 months because he kept getting distracted fixing hers. Vivian came to dinner. Then she came again. On the 4th visit, she brought a sweatshirt in a bag and left it in Claire's closet, and neither of them ever mentioned it out loud, not once ever. Richard Whitmore and Ethan Carter did not become friends. That would have been a lie. What they became was 2 men who could stand in a garage together and talk about a transmission for 40 minutes, which is for a certain kind of American man the same thing. In March, Claire took the box out of the closet. She and Lily made a photo album. It took a whole Saturday. Lily asked 140 questions about Daniel, and Claire answered every single one, including the hard ones, including did he die. Scared, and Claire said, a little. At the beginning, not at the end. And Lily said, "Okay." And that was that. Then Lily said, "Can we do one for my mom?" And Ethan Carter had to go stand in the garage for a while. They did one for Sarah. It took 3 Saturdays because there were more pictures, and because Ethan had to keep stopping. And in June, Claire Whitmore hung 6 photographs in 6 empty frames in her hallway. Daniel got 1. Sarah got 1. Lily got 2 because Lily negotiated. Vivian got 1 in the sweatshirt taken without permission. The 6th one was a picture of Ethan asleep on Claire's couch with a level still in his hand. There was a picture of them in it finally. Somebody had taken it. An 8-year-old with a phone she wasn't supposed to have. Which brings it to a Tuesday 14 months after a joke on a porch step. 6:04 in the evening. Ethan Carter said, "Come here a second." "I'm cooking." "Claire, you're not cooking, you're standing near food." "Ethan, come here." She came. He walked her out of the kitchen and down the hall, past 6 full frames, and stopped at the last door on the left, the one that was a guest room now, the one Lily did homework in. Claire's breath caught. "Ethan?" "14 months ago," he said, "you dragged me down this hall by the wrist." "I know." "You didn't say a word. Claire, you didn't say one word the whole way. I've never been so scared in my life, and I ran into a burning duplex in 2016. Claire was already crying. And before that, Ethan said, "I sat on your step and I made the stupidest joke I've ever made in my life because you were crying and I couldn't fix it, and making a joke is the only thing I know how to do when I can't fix something." "Ethan, I said maybe you should just marry me. At least you'd know what you're getting." 6:06. He got down. Not on one knee. Both. Because his left knee had been shot since 2014, and he was not going to fake it in front of this woman of all people. Claire Whitmore put both hands over her mouth. "That was a joke," Ethan said. "This isn't." "Ethan." "Claire, you do know what you're getting." His voice was in pieces, and he didn't care. "You know exactly what you're getting. You've seen the whole thing. You've seen me on a kitchen floor. You've heard my wife's voice. You know about the drawer and the truck and the 19-year-old furnace, and you know I've got one whole thing left in me." "Ethan, get up. And you told me one thing's enough," he said, "if there's 3 of us." 6:07. From the kitchen doorway, an 8-year-old, now 9, said, "Dad, you said 6:30. Lily. "I'm not ready. I don't have the thing." "Lily Carter, go get the thing." She got the thing. She came back at a dead sprint with a box, and she was crying and she was furious about crying, and she shoved it into her father's hands and said, "You said 6:30. And Ethan said, "I lost my nerve bug." And Lily said, "That's fair," and stood there vibrating. Ethan opened the box. It was a ring. It was not a large ring. Claire Whitmore, who could have bought the store, looked at it and made a sound like she'd been hit. "It's not big," Ethan said. "Ethan, it's about $420, he said, which is what swimming lessons cost now, which I've mentioned. 11 times, Lily said. So. Ethan Carter looked up at her from the floor of a hallway in a house that had been a museum in front of a door that used to be locked. At least you know what you're getting. 6:08. Claire Whitmore looked down at him, and she didn't say yes. She reached down and she took his wrist. The same grip, the exact same one. 14 months and the same grip, and this time she didn't pull him anywhere. She pulled him up. "Yes," she said. "Yes, God. Yes, you idiot. Get up off my floor. Get up." And Ethan Carter got up. 6:09. Lily Carter screamed so loud the Hendersons heard it. They got married that September in a yard. It was Claire's idea. She didn't explain it, and Ethan didn't ask, and Vivian Whitmore, who had once booked a restaurant without asking her daughter a single question, asked 40 questions and booked nothing. Richard walked her down. He cried the entire way badly, silently, the way a man cries when he's had 40 years of practice at knot. Lily was the maid of honor. She gave a speech. It was 2 minutes long, and it was mostly about swimming. And years later, when people asked Claire Whitmore how it started, she never told them about the bedroom. That was hers. She'd smile and she'd say, "A man made a joke on my step. It was a terrible joke. It was the wrong thing at the wrong time, and it wasn't even funny." And then she'd say the rest of it. And it got me anyway.